Chapter 2610. It's actually a clone. How did this happen? The 9 ancestor dragons were in a mess. If it was only King Yu, they had full confidence that they could snatch the divine weapon. But now there were 10 more commanders. The strength of each of the 10 great commanders was not inferior to theirs. In terms of numbers, the blood demon race had the absolute advantage. How could they snatch it? This is not right. They've clearly been prepared for this. Could it be that there is a spy among us who informed the blood demon race? The woman in white said angrily. Spy. The blood-red shirt youth and the rest were stunned. It's impossible for there to be a spy, because from the beginning of the plan until we rushed to the ancient city, no one left. The black dragon ancestor dragon's face sank. Then why is that? The woman in white shouted angrily. King Yu smiled and said, Yes, there is a spy among you. Who? The 9 ancestor dragons looked at King Yu in shock. It could be you. King Yu pointed at the black dragon ancestor dragon and laughed mockingly. The black dragon ancestor dragon's face turned black. Anyone could be a spy except for him. It could also be you. King Yu pointed at the woman in white. It could also be you. King Yu looked at the golden dragon ancestor dragon. It could be Yizhong. King Yu said again. You tricked us. The 9 ancestor dragons were furious. The more King Yu said this, the less likely there was a spy. Haha, so what if I tricked you? King Yu could not stop laughing. Scoundrel. The 9 ancestor dragons clenched their fists and their eyes were extremely gloomy. The word scoundrel refers to yourselves. King Yu's face was full of sarcasm. He looked at the black dragon ancestor dragon and said, Do you think that I don't know that you and Yizhong secretly came to the ancient city to investigate? The black dragon ancestor dragon was shocked. They had been exposed long ago. I expected that you would come to snatch the divine weapon sooner or later. That's why when Yizhong appeared earlier, I didn't see any of you. That's why I took precautions. Indeed, all of you were hiding behind. After so many years, your characters have not changed at all. Despicable and cunning. However, this king is not to be trifled with. This time, I will catch all of you in one fell swoop. King Yu sneered. Ancestral dragon black dragon said in a deep voice, There's no point in talking anymore. If you want to fight, then come. All right, kill them for this king. Pay special attention to that old bastard. King Yu pointed at the black dragon ancestor dragon and shouted. Yes, the 10 great leaders roared, their voices like thunder shaking the heavens. Boom! Following closely, the 10 commanders all released their auras. Shweta and Shwet Air joined forces to attack the black dragon ancestral dragon. This was the focus of attention. The other 8 commanders charged towards the blood-red, clothed youth and the others. Stop fighting. If there's a chance, break the barrier and escape. Ancestral dragon black dragon thought to himself. Understood. The white-clothed woman and the other 8 people secretly responded. The sudden turn of events caused them to fall into a very passive situation. Thus, they could not tangle with the blood demons. Rumble. The battle immediately began. The white-clothed woman and the other 8 were still fine, because each of them only had one opponent. With their strength, it would be difficult for the 8 great commanders to defeat them. But the black dragon ancestor dragon was in an extremely sorry state, 1 against 2, and the other party's strength was not inferior to his at all. In a short while, the black dragon ancestor dragon was covered in blood. Seeing this, not only did Shweta and Shwet Air not lower their guard, their attacks became even more fierce. Because it was not their first time fighting with the ancestral dragon, they knew the strength of these ancestral dragons. If they thought that they could underestimate these ancestral dragons just because they had a little advantage, it was tantamount to courting death. Roar! The battle lasted for a moment. The black dragon ancestor dragon suddenly roared, and his body shone with divine light. The next moment, a huge black dragon appeared out of nowhere. There was a cluster of divine fire patterned between his eyebrows. This was the black dragon ancestor dragon's true form. Yes, under the pressure of Shweta and Shwaer, he had no choice but to revert to his true form. After reverting to his true form, the black dragon ancestor dragon's aura suddenly soared. Whether it was the ancestral dragon or the divine dragons of the dragons, they could not exert their full strength in their human form. In other words, dragons who reverted to their divine dragon form were the most terrifying. Do you really think that I'm made of mud? The black dragon ancestor dragon roared. His body that was thousands of feet long was a few hundred times bigger than Shweta and Shwaer. The dragon claw that was as huge as a mountain grabbed at the two of them. The surrounding void shattered at this moment. We don't know if you're made of mud. We only know that you have to stay in the ancient city of Kingu today. Shweta sneered and looked at Shwaer, who was beside him. Shwaer nodded. Boom! Immediately, two terrifying auras suddenly burst out from their bodies, and they were much stronger than before. Obviously, they had been conserving their strength earlier. Kill! Immediately after, the two of them leaped up, raised their fists, and punched at one of the dragon claw each. Boom! When the fists and the dragon claw met, streaks of destructive auras instantly surged out in all directions. However, after such an intense battle, the ancient city of Kingu did not show any signs of damage. Seeing this, the white-eyed wolf could not help but have some thoughts. It was hiding in a building not far away, with the building helping it to block the fluctuations of the battle. It was not implicated. Should I move away from the ancient city of Kingu? The white-eyed wolf thought to himself. Boom! In the sky above the ancient city. The warm-up was over. The 10 commanders attacked without holding back. The woman in white and the other 6 looked at each other across the sky. Accompanied by the deafening roar of the dragon, they transformed back to their original forms. Their bodies were tens of thousands of feet long, and their dragon power surged, shattering the sky. However, the Ghost King did not attack at all. He stood in front of the palace like an outsider. This made the white-eyed wolf very unhappy. It wanted to sneak into the palace, but the Ghost King did not move. There was no chance at all. Old bastard. It seems that the physical bodies of the divine dragons are not that great. Shweta and Shwaer laughed wildly. Their fists were like a violent storm as they punched the dragon claw of the black dragon ancestral dragon. Cracks kept appearing on the dragon claw of the black dragon ancestral dragon, and dragon blood splattered everywhere. The furious black dragon ancestral dragon suddenly raised its huge tail and slapped at the two of them. In the outside world, the physical bodies of the dragons were very strong. Even artifacts could not break through their defense. However, there was a saying that there would always be someone stronger. In front of the blood demons, the physical bodies of the dragons did not seem that strong, because the dragons themselves focused on cultivation. However, the blood demons could not break through to the imperishable realm, so they could only strengthen their physical bodies. Over time, the blood demon race's physical body and power had reached an unprecedented level. It could be said that no creature in the world could compare to them, especially the blood demons at the peak 9 heavens realm. Because their cultivation had already reached the limit, they could only train their physical bodies. The blood demons below the peak 9 heavens realm were actually similar to the creatures in the outside world. They also focused on cultivation. After all, they still had room to improve their cultivation. Similarly, for the blood demons, the peak 9 heavens realm was also a watershed, because once they stepped into the peak 9 heavens realm, it was equivalent to standing at the top of the pyramid of hell. Seeing the dragon tail smashing down, A cold light appeared in the eyes of Shweta and Shwe-Er at the same time. The two of them raised their huge hands and punched out without dodging. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere. 2 dustpan-sized dragon scales shattered on the spot, and dragon blood splattered everywhere. The black dragon, ancestral Gragon, howled in pain. But at the same time he spat out a dragon breath from his mouth, which instantly drowned Shweta and Shwe-Er. Dragon breath was also one of the divine dragon's methods. Shweta and Shwe-Er did not expect the black dragon ancestral Gragon to counterattack at this time. They were caught off guard, and several bone-deep wounds appeared on their bodies. However, they did not care about these wounds at all, because they had the evil sun. No matter how serious the injuries were, as long as they summoned the power of the evil sun, they could quickly recover. This was the advantage that the dragons did not have. In other words, as long as they had the evil sun, the blood demons would be in an invincible position. Boom! The two of them directly raised their fists and shattered the dragon breath with one punch. Simple, explosive power. The black dragon ancestral Gragon also took the opportunity to swallow a few divine life pills. The life divine pills all had 3 veins. However, even the divine life pills with 3 patterns could not compare to the power of the evil sun. The injuries suffered by the black dragon ancestral Gragon could not be healed in a short period of time. I really don't know why you guys develop something like pills. They are completely useless. Shweta and Shwe-Er's faces were full of disdain as they summoned the power of the evil sun. In just a few breaths, the wounds on their bodies were healed. Looking at the black dragon ancestral Gragon's wounds, although they were also healing, they were far from being healed. And in such a battle, every minute and second could determine the outcome. Their disadvantages and advantages were immediately revealed. Come on, quickly show me all your methods, such as divine techniques, battle souls, divine artifacts. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't have a chance. Shweta and Shwe-Er laughed, and like 2 divine demons, they forced the black dragon ancestral Gragon to retreat. His injuries continued to worsen. The other 8 ancestral Gragon situation was much better than the black dragon ancestral Gragons. Their strength was almost on par with the 8 great commanders. However, if this continued, they would definitely lose. Because the blood demons had the powerful backing of the evil sun, we can't keep fighting like this. We have to leave as soon as possible. The black dragon ancestral Gragon scanned the battlefield, his heart full of worry. But more than that, he felt aggrieved. He was at the greater perfection imperishable realm, but he was forced to this point by a group of perfection 9 heavens realms. If there were no rules and restrictions, he could kill the entire blood demon tribe by himself with his cultivation. I won't accept this. The more the black dragon ancestral Gragon thought, the angrier he became. Clang! A ray of black divine light shot out of his body. It was a long black sword that emitted a dazzling light, and its sharpness tore through the void. Break the barrier for me! The black dragon ancestral Gragon roared. The long black sword instantly turned into a ray of divine light and slashed at the barrier above. This was a supreme grade divine artifact. Clang! But at the same time, accompanied by 2 ear-piercing sounds, 2 axes appeared in the hands of Shweta and Shwe-Er. The sharpness was overwhelming. It was also a supreme grade divine artifact. However, Shwe-Er and Shwe-Er did not stop the long black sword. They grabbed the axes and charged at the black dragon ancestral Gragon with murderous intent. Chapter 26:11. Kill me? Are you guys dreaming? Black dragon ancestral Gragon sneered as divine light suddenly appeared on his body. Immediately after, a black armor appeared on his huge body and covered his entire body. Supreme level armor. Shweta and Shwe-Er charged forward. Their battle axes hit the armor and sparks flew. although the armor helped the black dragon ancestral Gragon block the fatal battle axe. The terrifying power still sent the black dragon ancestral Gragon flying. With a loud boom, it smashed into the city below. The buildings were not damaged, and ancestral Gragon was not seriously injured. After all, whether it was the ancient city or the armor on ancestral Gragon, they were both supreme-level artifacts. Ancestral Gragon immediately rushed into the sky and stared at the black blade. He roared, "You must break the barrier!" The black blade was already in front of the barrier. Hope was right in front of him. Dream on. However, a cold voice suddenly sounded. It was like a demon's voice. The hope in ancestral Gragon's heart was instantly extinguished. Immediately after, the Nether King was in the sky and grabbed the black blade with his bare hands. Bastard! Ancestral Gragon roared and controlled the black blade, wanting to crush the Nether King's huge hand. The black blade kept vibrating. It was so sharp that it could destroy the world. However, the Nether King stood in the sky and grabbed the black blade tightly like a demon. There was no sign of injury on his huge hand. But how strong is his physical body? The white-eyed wolf's eyes almost popped out when he saw this. However, immediately after, an even more shocking scene appeared. The Nether King smiled coldly. He exerted force on his huge hand, and the black blade was instantly crushed. No way! He crushed a supreme-level artifact with his bare hands. This your sister, isn't it too exaggerated? The white-eyed wolf could not help but break out in cold sweat. How could he provoke such a powerful being? If the Nether King knew that he was also eyeing the heaven-defying artifact, he would crush his small body easily. No. He had to change his plan. He could not provoke the blood demon race. However, ancestral Gragon was not surprised at all. It was as if he already knew that the Nether King had such strength. However, the despair in his heart grew even stronger. He understood the Ghost King well. The reason why the Ghost King hadn't made a move yet was because he didn't want to bully the Ghost King with numbers. However, if the 10 great commanders were unable to capture them, then the Ghost King would definitely act personally. Just one Kinyu was already so powerful. Coupled with the 10 great commanders, they might really have to perish here today. What should we do? Is there any way to break this deadlock? Black Dragon, ancestral Gragon's mind was in chaos. You dare to be distracted? Are you looking down on us? When Big Shwe and Big Shwe saw ancestral Black Wolf's expression, they were instantly enraged. They gripped their battle axes and charged at ancestral Black Wolf. Clang! The Black Dragon, ancestral dragon, was sent flying again. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of dragon blood. Old Black, don't think too much. Hurry up and fight. As long as we fight with our lives on the line, we may not necessarily lose. Ancestor, White Dragon roared. Yes, we are the ancestral dragons. How could I lose to these ants? The Black Dragon, ancestor dragon roared furiously. The dragon god's power roared in all directions as he charged towards Shweta and Shweta with murderous intent. However, very soon, they had no choice but to accept this reality. They had supreme-grade, divine artifacts. The 10 great commanders had them too. They had supreme-grade divine arts. The 10 great commanders had them too. They had battle souls. The 10 great commanders also had battle souls. However, they didn't have what the 10 great commanders had. It was the evil sun. The evil sun was a strong backing for the blood demon tribe. As long as the evil sun was there, they would be there too. Unless they had the strength to crush the 10 great commanders, they would be immortal. However, against the 10 great commanders, even the 9 great ancestral dragons didn't have the ability to crush them. We haven't even found a single heaven-defying divine artifact. Are we really going to be wiped out? The 9 great ancestral dragons were unwilling. They weren't afraid of death. because they had left a strand of divine soul on the divine Dragon Island. Even if they died in the Nether King's hell, they could be reborn. However, one had to know. Their purpose of coming to the Nether King's hell was to find a heaven-defying divine artifact. Now, they hadn't even found a single heaven-defying divine artifact. If they were to be wiped out like this, wouldn't their trip to the Nether King's hell be in vain? There was also Qin Feiyang. Originally, they had planned to get rid of this little bastard in the Nether King's hell, but now they hadn't even seen him. If they were to be wiped out here, wouldn't their carefully planned scheme be ruined? No, they definitely couldn't die here. Qin Feiyang, this threat, must be eliminated in the Nether King's hell. I'll self-detonate. You guys leave. The black dragon, ancestral dragon, roared. What? Self-detonate? The other few great ancestral dragons were shocked. The 10 great commanders also revealed a trace of shock. However, King Yu didn't have any reaction. Don't forget our purpose of opening the Nether King's hell to the outside world. We don't need the heaven-defying divine artifact, but we definitely can't let Qin Feiyang return to the ancient world alive. The black dragon, ancestral dragon, said gloomily. Qin Feiyang! Hearing this name, King Yu's cold expression couldn't help but show a trace of emotion. It seemed like frenzy didn't lie to him. This Qin Feiyang was indeed a great threat to the dragons. However, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. To the blood demon race, this Qin Feiyang was someone they could interact with. All right, we must kill him. We won't let him leave the Nether King's hell alive. The white dragon, ancestral dragon, nodded. Currently, only one of the ancestral dragons could self-detonate to break this deadlock. Come on. The black dragon, ancestral dragon, roared as a destructive aura rushed out from his body. Retreat! King Yu shouted. The 10 great commanders immediately retreated. If it was at night, they wouldn't be afraid. This was because after transforming at night, their physical bodies would be even stronger. However, during the day, even they didn't dare to be careless in the face of the ancestral dragon's self-detonation. Boom! However, at this moment, 3 terrifying auras suddenly appeared in the sky above the enchantment. The 9 great ancestral dragons looked up and saw 3 familiar figures standing above the enchantment. They were Yi Zhong, the chief pavilion master, and that unfamiliar young man. In an instant, the 9 great ancestral dragons felt as though they had seen their relatives as tears welled up in their eyes. Boom! Yi Zhong and the other 2 attacked with all their might. The enchantment that enveloped the ancient Nether King's ancient city shattered. Let's go. The black dragon, ancestral dragon, decisively stopped his self-detonation. With a low roar, he rushed to the sky. The white dragon, ancestral dragon, the blood dragon, ancestral dragon, and the others quickly followed. As the black dragon, ancestral dragon's self-detonation had scared off the 10 great commanders, no one stopped them for a while. Where do you think you are going? However, when the 10 great commanders came back to their senses, they immediately chased after them. Since you said you are going to self-detonate, then you must self-detonate. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving today. At this moment, King Yu finally made his move. A blood-red divine power surged toward the 9 great ancestral dragons and Yi Zhong's group like a torrent. King Yu, with me around, don't even think about touching a single hair of theirs. Yi Zhong took a step forward and stood behind the 9 great ancestral dragons. He waved his old hand and a wave of fire surged out. Boom! The wave of fire roared and the divine power of King Yu was annihilated on the spot. So strong? The white-eyed wolf stared with his eyes wide open. On the mountain peak, Madman and Blood Eagle were also extremely shocked. King Yu's strength was obvious to all. He was so powerful that it made people despair. However, Yi Zhong could actually suppress King Yu? No, that's the power of law. Madman stared at the wave of fire, and his gaze suddenly trembled as he exclaimed, "The power of law!" Blood Eagle was also shocked. "That's right. It's the power of law. It turns out that he has mastered the law of fire." "That's not right. Can one use the power of law in this hell?" Madman looked at Blood Eagle suspiciously. "How would I know? The power of law is something unreachable in my eyes." Blood Eagle shook his head. At the same time, Kingu couldn't help but frown and said angrily, "Damn, old man, what benefits did the dragons give you to always come out and make trouble?" "Each for their own master." Yi Zhong smiled faintly. At this moment, the 9 ancestral dragons had already escaped and met up with the chief pavilion master and the unfamiliar youth. Kingu glanced at the 9 ancestral dragons before looking at Yi Zhong again. "All right, you can stay here then." As his voice fell, a wave of blood aura rushed out from King Yu's body. This wasn't divine power. It was a power filled with killing intent. This killing intent was unprecedented. It was even more terrifying than Qin Feiyong's kill formula. Yi Zhong's eyes also had a trace of seriousness as he shouted without turning his head, "Beast Emperor!" "Beast Emperor?" Madman's expression froze when he heard Yi Zhong shout. What Beast Emperor? Could it be the Beast Emperor of the Internal Sea? But he didn't see him. Swish! Suddenly, that unfamiliar youth took a step forward and landed beside Yi Zhong. "What? It's him." Madman looked at the unfamiliar youth in shock. Yi Zhong looked at the blood aura floating around Kingu and said in a deep voice, "His slaughter law has improved a lot since the last time. We can't be careless." "I know." The unfamiliar youth nodded. A wave of fire instantly surged out. "What? It's actually the law of fire, too." Madman was shocked. Beast Emperor. Could it be that he's really the Beast Emperor of the Internal Sea? Also one of the 4 emperors of the Dragon Slayer Palace, the Supreme Beast? "Kingu, you can't stop us. Why don't you let us go happily? I promise you that I will never come to King Yu's ancient city again." Yi Zhong looked at King Yu and said, "Let's give it a try then." King Yu was expressionless. As he waved his giant hand, the blood aura around him surged towards the 2 of them like a torrent of beasts. This is also the power of law. It seems that the power of law can really be used in hell. Madman muttered. At the same time, seeing King Yu make a move, Yi Zhong and the unfamiliar youth looked at each other, and 2 waves of fire surged out. Rumble! The 3 power of law collided with each other. The void was immediately shattered. The blood demon race surrounding King Yu's ancient city also retreated in fear. Even the King Yu's ancient city below was shattering. "Damn it! This is too scary." The white-eyed wolf howled and hurriedly fled out of the city. "Lord, we can't fight here." Looking at the shattered King Yu's ancient city, the 10 commanders changed their expressions. The power of law had already surpassed the limit of divine power. If this continued, even the King Yu's ancient city, which was a supreme artifact, would be destroyed. Chapter 26:12. King Yu lowered his head and looked at the ancient city. There was a hint of hesitation in his expression. Just as King Yu was hesitating, Yi Zhong and the Demon Emperor seized the opportunity to soar into the sky and meet up with the 9 ancestral dragons and the chief pavilion master. "Let's go!" With Yi Zhong's shout, the group immediately turned around and activated the supreme level auxiliary divine technique. They headed deep into the mountains without looking back. "Are we going to let them escape just like that?" The lunatic frowned. "It's not that easy to escape." However, at the same time, the 10 great commanders roared and rushed into the sky in unison, chasing after the group of people. King Yu raised his head and looked at Yi Zhong and the rest. He frowned slightly and waved his hand, erasing all the battle waves with the massacre law. This included Yi Zhong and the Beast Emperor's fire law. Look after the ancient city. If any humans come to invade, kill them without mercy." After instructing his people, King Yu took a step forward and disappeared into the mountains outside the city. These damn dragons, no. The one who really deserves to die is Yi Zhong. The dragons were almost annihilated last time. However, all of them escaped because of Yi Zhong. It's the same this time. The blood demons were furious and returned to the ancient city. "Wolf cub, where are you?" Shui Zhu returned to the ancient city and looked for the white-eyed wolf. However, the white-eyed wolf turned a deaf ear to him. He looked at the palace. This was a good opportunity to enter the palace, deep in the mountains. King Yu was rushing to meet up with the 10 commanders. "King Yu, wait." Suddenly, a voice sounded in King Yu's mind. King Yu was stunned and stopped in the air. Whoosh! The next moment, 2 figures flew out from the mountains below and landed beside King Yu. They were the lunatic and the blood eagle. "You guys are here too?" King Yu was surprised. "I'm here to see if you can get rid of them. However, the outcome is somewhat unexpected." The lunatic shook his head. "Don't worry, the outcome won't change. I didn't make a move earlier because I didn't want to hurt the ancient city of King Yu and my people." The Yu King said domineeringly. "In other words, Yi Zhong and the others had to die." "Is that so? Although all of you have supreme-grade support-type divine techniques, Yi Zhong and the others have them as well. With the same level of cultivation and the same support-type divine arts, are you sure you can catch up to them?" Madman said. King Yu raised an eyebrow. "Although my words might make you uncomfortable, this is the truth. Once they break free, it will be difficult to kill them." Madman was in a bad mood. He had presented the opportunity to the Ghost King, but what did the Ghost King do? Throughout the whole process, he did not make a move. If the Ghost King had personally made a move right from the start, the 9 great ancestor dragons would have lost their lives long ago. How could such a thing have happened? The Ghost King looked at the lunatic and sighed. "This matter is indeed my fault. What's done is done. Right or wrong is no longer important. Now, I'm giving you another chance." Madman said. "What opportunity?" The Ghost King was suspicious. Giant Dragon Mountain Range. For the past 100 years, they have been hiding in the Giant Dragon Mountain Range. Now, let the 10 great commanders chase after them. You will follow me to the Giant Dragon Mountain Range. Yi Zhong and the others will definitely think of a way to return to the Giant Dragon Mountain Range. You will wait for them there. As for the 10 great commanders, although Yi Zhong and the Beast Emperor have grasped the power of laws, the 10 great commanders can summon the power of the evil sun. It will be difficult for Yi Zhong and the Beast Emperor to kill them. So, even if you don't follow, you don't have to worry about their safety," Madman said. "Giant Dragon Mountain Range," the Ghost King murmured and smiled. "I naturally don't have to worry about the 10 great commanders' safety because Shweta has also comprehended the law of slaughter." "What?" Madman was shocked. The Ghost King continued. "However, Shweda's law of slaughter is only at the entry level and can't compare to mine." Madman frowned and said, "Why doesn't hell have any restriction on the power of laws?" To be able to use the power of laws, this wasn't good news for him. Qin Feiyong and the White-Eyed Wolf. "How would I know this?" "You have to ask the Nether King, the ruler of hell." The Ghost King smiled bitterly. "Nether King, the ruler of hell," Madman pondered for a while and sighed. "I think the ruler of hell should be the dragon god of dragons." "You even know about the dragon god?" The Ghost King was surprised. "Of course I know. To tell you the truth, that black dragon, ancestral dragon, is my master." Madman chuckled. "Ah." The Ghost King looked at him in astonishment. This human was a little interesting. He actually wanted to trick his master? Don't think too much. It's just his wishful thinking that he accepted me as his disciple. Moreover, He only accepted me as his disciple because he saw that I could absorb the power of evil. I don't care about it at all." Madman had a look of disdain. "All right then, bring me to the giant dragon mountain range." "We will catch them off guard," the Ghost King said. The Ghost King said, "You are the one who will kill them. Don't count us in. If you fail again, how am I going to show my face in the future? It would be strange if I don't get eaten alive by them." Madman rolled his eyes. "This time, it will definitely not happen." The Ghost King smiled embarrassedly. "Only a fool would believe you." Madman snorted coldly. Back to Yizhong's group. They were currently running for their lives in the sky above a mountain range. Black Dragon, Ancestral Dragon, asked, "How did you guys discover that the 10 commanders were clones?" "It was Yizhong who discovered it," the Chief Pavilion Master said. The unfamiliar young man nodded as well. The 9 ancestral dragons had already transformed into their human forms. Hearing this, they couldn't help but turn to look at Yizhong. When I was facing them at that time, I kept feeling that something was amiss, because looking at their expressions, it seemed like they were here to drag us down. So I tested them and found out that they were just clones. Yizhong said in a deep voice. The Chief Pavilion Master frowned and said, "Did someone leak our plan? Otherwise, why would they send their clones to chase after us?" We also suspected that there were spies in the beginning, but that wasn't the case. It was because Yizhong and I came to the ancient city to investigate the situation and were accidentally discovered by them. So we held back. Black Dragon, Ancestral Dragon sighed. "So that's the case." The Chief Pavilion Master nodded in realization. The unfamiliar young man shook his head and said, "We were too careless this time." "Yeah. Fortunately, Yizhong saw through their clones and came to rescue us in time. Otherwise, we would really have to self-destruct to kill our way out." Black Dragon, Ancestral Dragon said. The blood-robed young man and the others nodded. All along, Long Zun thought highly of Yizhong. He was even more important than the ancestral dragons, and they had always been unconvinced. On what basis? Wasn't it just because he comprehended the power of law? But now that they thought about it carefully, Yizhong was indeed extraordinary. For example, last time in the plains, he pretended to be Lin Yi and her disciple and set up a trap to lure Qin Feiyang out. Yizhong was the only one who noticed something was wrong. Unfortunately, they didn't listen. As a result, not only did Qin Feiyang snatch the 4 great divine artifacts, such as Sunset, Divine Bow, but even their physical bodies and souls were destroyed. They had to admit that sometimes brains were actually more important than strength. Sai, even if we self-destruct, we may not be able to kill our way out. This King Yu's slaughter law has become several times stronger than last time. Yizhong shook his head. This is true. The current King Yu has become more difficult to deal with. The unfamiliar young man nodded. The woman in white turned her head and looked at the 10 commanders who were following closely behind. She frowned and said, "Then what should we do now?" Yizhong also turned his head and glanced at the 10 commanders. He shook his head and said, "It's almost impossible to get rid of them." The Chief Pavilion Master said worriedly, "What I'm most worried about now is whether King Yu has caught up with us." "Heard about it." Everyone's expression darkened slightly. If King Yu had caught up with them, then it would be really troublesome. "Yizhong, I really don't understand. The dragons are a bunch of trash. Why are you protecting them?" Behind them, the chief commander spoke, his loud voice filled with disdain. "Trash!" The 9 ancestor dragons were instantly enraged. The dragons controlled the entire ancient world and held the fate of all living beings in their hands. How dare they call them trash? Isn't that the case? None of the 10 ancestor dragons have comprehended the power of laws. You can't even compare to Yizhong and the Beast Emperor. Aren't you embarrassed? The chief commander mocked without restraint. You can only do whatever you want in the hell of the netherworld. If we were in the ancient world, I would be able to kill a small character like you 1,000 times with a wave of my hand. The black ancestor dragon roared. That's true. You dragons can only do whatever you want in the ancient world. In the hell of the netherworld, you don't even deserve to be called trash. I'm very curious. How does it feel to be bullied by us, who you call small characters? Not only staunch bleeding, but the other 9 commanders also mocked them one after another. Bastards! The 9 ancestor dragons were burning with anger. Don't be fooled. They are provoking you. Yi Zhong secretly shouted. Yes, if you let your emotions affect your decisions now, I'm afraid we will really be wiped out. The unfamiliar young man also hurriedly advised. The 9 ancestor dragons clenched their hands and desperately suppressed the anger in their hearts. Yi Zhong, the Beast Emperor, are the dragons your grandchildren? Do you have to protect them like this? Blood too chuckled as his eyes darted around the room. I think so. Haha, so the dragons are the descendants of humans and Fire Qilin. I've really learned something new. The other commanders also began to mock him without restraint. Looking at the 9 ancestor dragons whose faces were ashen and trembling with anger, Yi Zhong secretly knew that things were not good and hurriedly comforted them. They are sowing discord. Calm down. Calm down for what? Is it that in your eyes I, the dragons, am also so unbearable? Yes. We are not as good as you, but we are true divine dragons with noble bloodlines. And you are just a lowly human. You are just lucky to have comprehended the power of law and are valued by Lord Dragon Sovereign. The 9 ancestor dragons glared at Yi Zhong. Although they knew that the 10 commanders were sowing discord, their self-esteem did not allow it. In fact, if Yi Zhong did not persuade them, it would have been better. They would have just endured it. But when Yi Zhong persuaded them, their self-esteem could not take it anymore. They felt that Yi Zhong seemed to sympathize with them and felt that they were stupid and would definitely be angered. What are you doing? Is this little trick enough to incite you? The unfamiliar young man frowned. Shut up. Although you are a Fire Qilin, so what? The owner of the ancient world will never be your Fire Qilin. The young man in crimson roared angrily and almost lost his mind. Fine. I am being nosy. You can do whatever you want. Goodbye. The unfamiliar young man was really angry and turned to fly in another direction. What was this? He had painstakingly rescued them from the ancient King Yu city. Not only did they not know how to thank him, they even humiliated him. Chapter 26:13. Don't go. Yi Zhong hurriedly grabbed the young man. The young man said angrily, What are you doing here? To be humiliated by them? They're just angry. Yi Zhong was extremely anxious. How could they have internal strife at this time? Oldie, didn't you hear that they're calling you lowly? How can they say that out of anger? We saved them and they humiliated us. Is this their way of thanking us? They really don't know their place at all. The young man snorted. Who are you saying doesn't know their place? Are you implying that we're inferior to you? Do you think you're very powerful? Without the protection of us dragons, would you have been able to cultivate to the greater imperishable stage? I'm afraid you would have died somewhere. The young man in blood-red clothes shouted. All right, since we've made it clear, I'll say a few words from the bottom of my heart. When did Yi Zhong and I not help you when you came to the Nether King's hell? Even the sunset divine bow and more than half of the heaven-defying divine artifacts were snatched by Yi Zhong and me. But we selflessly gave these divine artifacts to you dragons. Ask yourself, if it weren't for these heaven-defying divine artifacts, would you dragons be where you are today? Yes, Yi Zhong and I are indebted to you dragons for your protection. That's why we have today's achievements and status. But over the years, we've done enough for you dragons. The young man sneered. Bastard, you want to fly alone now that your wings have hardened. The ancestral dragons glared at the young man. Humph. To be honest, apart from the dragon sovereign, who among the dragons has the right to tell Yizhong and me what to do? The young man's face was full of disdain. You. The ancestral dragons were furious. When the 10 commanders saw this scene, they laughed sinisterly. They thought that such a small trick wouldn't work. However, they didn't expect the ancestral dragons to care so much. It seemed that the ancestral dragons did have complaints about Yizhong and the Beast Emperor in the past. Furthermore, this resentment was extremely deep. Go ahead and mess around. The bigger the commotion, the better, because only by causing a ruckus would they have a chance to catch up. As expected, although Yizhong and the others were still fleeing, and they were still using their supreme auxiliary divine techniques, their speed was slightly slower than before. Everyone calm down. Let's talk after we escape, Yizhong said in a deep voice as he looked at the increasingly heavy atmosphere. All right, I'll give Yizhong some face. As for the rest of you, take care of yourselves. The strange young man sneered and fell silent. The few ancestral dragons didn't say anything else, but their eyes were extremely sinister. Why aren't you arguing anymore? Continue. The 10 commanders stared blankly at the group of people. It seemed that the drug was not strong enough. Ancestral dragon, Shweta pondered for a moment before asking Shwe and the others. Brothers, do you know what the ancestral dragon is? I don't know. Shwe and the others shook their heads. Let me tell you, the ancestral dragon is a unique existence in this world. In other words, there will only be one ancestral dragon in this world. Shweta said, So powerful? Shwe and the others were shocked. Of course, Shweta nodded. But that's not right. If it's so powerful, why can't it compare to Yizhong and the Beast Emperor? Shwe and the others were suspicious. Shweta laughed and said, You can only ask them the reason. Why can't you ancestral dragons compare to Yizhong and the others? Let's not talk about the Beast Emperor first. After all, it's a fire Qilin, a rare divine beast like you. Let's talk about Yizhong. He's just an ordinary human. Not only is his cultivation level comparable to yours, but he has also comprehended the power of laws. But none of you ancestral dragons have comprehended the power of laws. Could it be that his bloodline is better than yours? Why don't you tell us? We're really curious. Even you ancestral dragons can't compare to humans, let alone the other divine dragons. Are such dragons really qualified to control the ancient world? I think it's better to let humans rule it. The most ridiculous thing is, you're obviously weaker than others, but you still think you're so great. Are you trying to make your presence known? Actually, you can't because no one will ignore you. After all, you're ancestral dragons. Although you're not that great, there's a saying that goes, rare things are precious. Well said, rare things are precious. Maybe they're only worth that much. Shwe and the others laughed, and their words were full of sarcasm. Are you done? Yizhong suddenly turned around and glared at the group of people. Yizhong, with your strength and intelligence, you're definitely qualified to be a ruler. I really don't understand. Why are you protecting these idiots? Arrogant, selfish, and don't have any self-awareness. Shwe said disdainfully. Hearing the words self-awareness again, the anger in the 9 ancestral dragons' hearts surged again. One of the burly men immediately turned around and charged toward the 10 commanders. No, Yizhong shouted, but the burly man turned a deaf ear, his eyes full of anger. He was the earth dragon, ancestral dragon. His strong body was extremely ferocious. I'm waiting for you to die. Shwe and the others smiled coldly. Apart from Shweta, Shui and the other commanders immediately charged toward the burly man. Boom! Without any suspense, the burly man was directly beaten to the ground. Go and save him, the white-robed woman shouted. The unfamiliar young man said angrily, You're still going to save him? Do you want to be wiped out? Get lost if you're afraid of death. The white-robed woman said coldly, You're unreasonable. The unfamiliar young man was so angry that he trembled. Sigh. Yi Zhong sighed and took a step forward. The laws of fire surged out and forced the 10 commanders back. Without even turning his head, he said, You all leave first. What about you? The unfamiliar young man asked. I'm fine. Yi Zhong shook his head. I don't need you to save me. The blood-robed young man got up and glared at Yi Zhong angrily. Yi Zhong turned to look at the blood-robed young man. His eyes became extremely cold. Even the blood-robed young man couldn't help but shiver. I hope you guys don't fight among yourselves, because fighting among yourselves in the Nether King's hell will cost you your life. Go, Yi Zhong shouted. The blood-robed young man's eyes trembled. He turned and flew toward the white-robed woman and the others. The current Yi Zhong was no longer as amiable as before. He was emitting an invisible pressure. Even the various ancestral dragons couldn't help but panic. Hurry up, Yi Zhong shouted. Let's go. The black dragon ancestral dragon looked deeply at Yi Zhong. He flicked his sleeves and left without looking back. The other ancestral dragons followed. The unfamiliar young man glanced at Yi Zhong and transmitted his voice to the chief pavilion master. You follow the various ancestral dragons. I'll follow Yi Zhong. Follow Yi Zhong? The chief pavilion master was shocked. This is a good opportunity to persuade Yi Zhong. As long as we can persuade Yi Zhong to join our camp, we won't have to be afraid of Qin Batian and Lu Zhenyang. The unfamiliar young man said to himself. Be careful, the chief pavilion master reminded him. Don't worry. With Yi Zhong and I joining forces, unless King Yu comes personally, the 10 commanders won't be able to stop us. The unfamiliar young man transmitted his voice. The chief pavilion master immediately turned and chased after the 9 ancestral dragons. The unfamiliar young man took a step forward and landed beside Yi Zhong. He smiled and said, It's been a long time since I fought alongside you. Yi Zhong shook his head. On the opposite side, the 10 commanders could not help but frown. If it was the 9 ancestral dragons, they were confident of stopping them. However, these 2 were not so easy to deal with. What was His Excellency King Yu doing? Why hadn't he caught up yet? Come on. Let's see how much you guys have improved after so many years. The unfamiliar young man shouted, and the law of fire appeared, turning into an endless sea of fire that surged towards the 10 commanders. I guarantee that you guys will be surprised. Shui smiled coldly, and waves of blood qi burst out of his body. A terrifying, murderous aura instantly flooded the surroundings. What? The law of massacre? Yi Zhong was shocked. The unfamiliar young man was also shocked. This guy had comprehended the law of massacre as well. Boom! The waves of fire and blood qi collided. Thousands of miles of mountains and rivers were instantly razed to the ground, and the surrounding void collapsed and shattered crazily. In the end, the unfamiliar young man's law of fire had the upper hand. After all, King Yu said that Shui Da's law of massacre was only at the beginning. It's indeed powerful. Brothers, attack! Shui shouted. In terms of strength, he really admired Yi Zhong and the unfamiliar young man. However, he had no choice. Since they were enemies, he naturally had to get rid of them at all costs. Clang! The 10 commanders did not hold back at all. Supreme level divine weapons and techniques appeared one after another and surrounded the 2 of them crazily. Sigh! Sensing the terrifying battle fluctuations, the chief pavilion master could not help but sigh. The 9 ancestral dragons also fell silent. They knew that this was the 10 commanders' plan to sow discord, but they just could not help it. The words that fell into their ears were like steel needles that pierced into their hearts, making them feel extremely sullen and angry. Where are we going now? The chief pavilion master did not mention this matter again and turned to look at the 9 ancestral dragons. Let's return to the giant dragon mountain range first and think of a way to snatch the divine weapons. The black dragon, ancestral dragon, said in a deep voice, still not giving up? The chief pavilion master raised his eyebrows slightly. Kinyu was already on guard. The ancient city of King, you could almost declare that it was hopeless. At this time, shouldn't they change their plan? They really did not shed tears until they were in the coffin. She was regretting now that she should have followed Yizhong and the unfamiliar young man. After a few hours, giant Dragon Mountain Range, inside the canyon, Frenzy and King, you stood above the canyon. Shueda's father did not follow them. However, before they parted, Kinyu rewarded him with a supreme level divine weapon, which made him extremely happy. Before they parted, he even asked Frenzy to find his family to play more in the future. So you guys have been hiding in this place. Kinyu looked around and lowered his head to look at the canyon below. Humans have a saying, the most dangerous place is the safest place. Frenzy smiled faintly. Kinyu nodded. Giant Dragon Mountain Range was only a few hours away from the ancient city of Kinyu at the 9th Heaven Realm. This distance was indeed very close to the Blood Demon race. Chapter 26:14. The lunatic asked, "Do you have the confidence to get rid of them in one fell swoop?" "Of course." Kinyu nodded confidently. The lunatic pondered for a moment before shaking his head. "I'm still a little worried. Do you have so little confidence in me?" Kinyu was displeased. "I'm afraid that an accident will happen. After all, there are many things in this world that we can't predict." The lunatic said, "Then what do you want to do?" Kinyu was suspicious. "If you fail, then I have to continue lurking around them, because this is the only way to grasp their whereabouts. Therefore," as the lunatic said this, he raised his arm and slapped his sea of vital energy. His sea of vital energy shattered on the spot, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. "What are you doing?" Kinyu was bewildered. The lunatic seemed to feel that this was not enough. He took out a dagger and slashed a few deep wounds on his body. "Are you crazy?" Kinyu was furious. How could one inflict such harm on themselves? However, the lunatic turned a deaf ear to him and grabbed his left arm. With a low growl, he tore it hard. Crack! His left arm was immediately torn off. Fresh blood spurted out like a fountain. The corners of King Yu's mouth twitched. This guy must have a masochistic disease. It's about time. This way. Even if you fail, they won't suspect that I am the one who leaked the information. The lunatic kept his dagger and endured the intense pain as he grinned at Kinyu. Looking at the smile on the lunatic's face, Kinyu could not help but feel fear in his heart. Just for the sake of putting on a show, he treated himself so cruelly. This was a ruthless person. The lunatic smiled. Men should be more ruthless to themselves. Kinyu smiled bitterly and sized up the lunatic for a moment before saying, "Why don't you follow me to the ancient city after getting rid of them?" "There are no treasures in your ancient city. Why should I go there?" The lunatic pouted. "Who said that there are no treasures? You can choose any supreme-level divine art or supreme-level divine artifact." Kinyu said, "I'm sorry. I don't care about such trash." The lunatic shook his head. "This is still trash?" Kinyu was stunned. "However, if you can give me that heaven-defying divine artifact, I will be very happy." The lunatic chuckled. "Ha ha!" Kinyu laughed and said, "Don't underestimate my ancient city of the Kinyu. My ancient city of the Kinyu has treasures that are even more powerful than heaven-defying divine weapons." More powerful than a heaven-defying divine artifact? Could that be a sovereign weapon? Madman was bewildered and his heart burned with passion. Sovereign weapon? King Yu was speechless. He shook his head and said, "There's no sovereign divine weapon, but this treasure is very useful to you. You'll know when you get there." "If that's the case, then I really have to go and take a look," Madman said. King Yu smiled mysteriously and said, "I'll keep you in suspense for now. I guarantee that you won't be disappointed." "All right," Madman nodded. After a while, several powerful auras approached from afar. "It's them. Hide!" Madman roared. How? This made things difficult for the Ghost King. 100-meter-tall body would be very eye-catching no matter where it hid, and there was no place for him to hide in the canyon. If only Qin Feiyong was here. His concealment technique can allow us to hide in the void directly. Madman also noticed this and could not help but shake his head helplessly. "How about this? We'll hide behind the canyon and conceal our aura. Once they appear, I'll take action," King Yu said. "All right." Madman nodded. King Yu immediately brought Madman to the back of the canyon and stuck out his head to look at the void in front of him. "Your head is too big and too obvious. Let me do it." After saying that, Madman directly flew to the top of King Yu's head and looked ahead. "By the way, can't your body shrink?" Madman looked ahead and asked softly. "No." King Yu transmitted his voice. "That's too inconvenient. If we enter the human world, we will cause a commotion wherever we go." Madman whispered. "The human world." King Yu muttered in his heart, and there seemed to be some desire in his eyes. Whoosh! Very soon, 10 figures entered Madman's line of sight. "What's the situation?" Madman was stunned. "What's the matter?" King Yu asked inwardly. "There's only the chief pavilion master and the 9 ancestral dragons. I don't see Zhong and that unfamiliar young man." Madman was suspicious. Unfamiliar young man. King Yu was stunned. Madman said inwardly, "It's that young man who grasped the law of fire." "So it's him." King Yu was enlightened and transmitted his voice. "He is the Beast Emperor Fire Qilin. It's really him." Madman was surprised and frowned. "That's not right. We've seen the Beast Emperor before, and he doesn't look like this. He indeed doesn't look like this." According to this king's observation, his current physical body should have been obtained through possession, said the king. King Yu said inwardly, "Possessed." Madman frowned and suddenly thought of something. He transmitted his voice. "I understand now." "What do you understand?" King Yu asked inwardly. Before hell opened, Qin Feiyong went to the inland sea and destroyed the Beast Emperor's physical body and divine soul. As a result, the Beast Emperor is only left with a trace of his divine soul. However, because hell is about to open, he has no way to recondense his divine soul and physical body. Therefore, he resorted to this method, possession. Madman said inwardly, "Destroyed the Beast Emperor's physical body and divine soul?" King Yu was shocked. He had heard rumors about Qin Feiyong from Madman more than once. To be able to kill the Beast Emperor. Who exactly was this person? Wait. Suddenly, Madman's eyes flashed coldly. "What's wrong?" King Yu was shocked and hurriedly asked. Back then, Qin Feiyong destroyed his physical body and divine soul. The Beast Emperor is only left with this last trace of his divine soul. And now his divine soul has entered hell. Doesn't that mean that his divine soul is no longer on Divine Dragon Island? Then, if we get rid of him in hell, won't the Beast Emperor be unable to revive? Madman said inwardly. That makes sense. King Yu pondered for a moment and transmitted his voice. Then this is an opportunity. Madman's eyes flashed. In the blink of an eye, the chief pavilion master and the 9 ancestor dragons flew out like lightning and landed in the canyon. we're finally back. The white-clothed woman let out a long breath. Where's Madman? Ancestor Black Dragon looked around. Why didn't he see any trace of Madman? The chief pavilion master and the other 8 ancestor dragons also immediately scanned the canyon, their eyes full of surprise. Why isn't he here? Could this madman be the spy? The white-clothed woman frowned. No. Look, there's an arm over there. The chief pavilion master suddenly pointed to a patch of grass not far away. There was a bloody arm in the grass. That's right. That was Madman's arm. After tearing off his arm, he casually threw it in the canyon. The 9 ancestor dragons and the chief pavilion master walked forward. The blood-robed youth said, "Could this be Madman's arm?" Who else could it be other than him? Ancestor Black Dragon's face sank. Obviously, Madman had an accident. Looking at the wound on his arm, it should have been torn off not long ago. But there are no traces of battle here. Who exactly is it? The group of people scanned the surroundings, their faces full of vigilance. "Make your move," Madman secretly said. Boom! Kingu grabbed Madman, and the law of slaughter surged out. The canyon in front of him immediately shattered, and dust covered all directions. While the law of slaughter shattered the canyon, it directly drowned the chief pavilion master and the 9 ancestor dragons. This is Kingu. The 10 people's expressions changed. "Master, save me." Madman's cries for help also sounded. "Madman!" The 10 people's eyes trembled. But at this moment, how could they still care about Madman? In just an instant, the law of slaughter caused them to be covered in wounds. The 10 people released their auras and rushed into the sky. But the law of slaughter also rushed into the sky. At the same time, Kingu also grabbed Madman and rushed out of the dust, landing in front of the 10 people. "Why did you find this place?" The 10 people released their divine power, resisting the law of slaughter while asking in shock and anger. "The entire Nether King's hell is under the control of my blood demon race. Is it that difficult to find your hiding place?" Kingu smiled coldly. The law of slaughter was like a huge wave, continuously drowning the 10 people. "Master!" Madman was also desperately struggling in Kingu's hands. Ancestor Dragon Black said, "I can't save you. You can fend for yourself." "Don't leave me behind," Madman roared. "Do you think you can still escape?" Kingu sneered. Clang! Accompanied by a loud sound, 10 divine lights rushed out from his body. Those were 10 supreme-grade divine artifacts. Seeing this scene, even Madman couldn't help but be dumbfounded. This was too crazy. 10 supreme-grade divine artifacts in one go? Sabers, spears, swords, halberds, everything. As soon as the 10 divine artifacts appeared, they cut through the sky and surrounded the chief pavilion master and the 9 ancestor dragons. Die! Kingu was very decisive this time. The 10 supreme-grade divine artifacts immediately rushed toward the chief pavilion master and the others from all directions with the power to destroy the world. There was also that terrifying law of slaughter. At this moment, their bodies were already dripping with blood. "Go! You must keep your lives and get rid of Qin Feiyang." The burly man roared, and his aura suddenly soared. Half-step indestructible. Early stage indestructible. Early stage indestructible. Early stage indestructible. Not good. He released the suppression on his cultivation. Madman exclaimed. Kingu frowned and transmitted his voice. "Don't be afraid, he is courting death." Boom! In the next moment, a monstrous divine might descended from the sky. Madman looked up at the sky. This was the power of the laws of hell? The burly man waved his hand, and the law of slaughter and the 10 supreme-grade divine artifacts were annihilated on the spot. This was the true strength of the ancestor dragon. If not for the restrictions of the laws, an ancestor dragon was enough to sweep through the entire hell. Go as far as you can. Don't come back. The burly man roared and slammed his palm toward the chief pavilion master and the others. The group of people was immediately sent flying. You go to hell too. The burly man looked at King Yu again, his eyes filled with resentment. However, without waiting for him to make a move, the power of the laws descended. Ah! With a scream, the burly man shattered on the spot. Not even his bones were left. Bastard! King Yu, I won't let you off. Let's go! Witnessing the burly man being obliterated by the power of the laws with their own eyes, Black Dragon, Ancestor Dragon, and the others couldn't help but feel sad, but they didn't dare to stay and turned to flee frantically. Chapter 26:15. This is too terrifying. Even a greater success, Undying Realm Powerhouse, couldn't resist it all and was instantly killed. Frenzy's heart was in turmoil. The first time he saw the power of the Nether King, it left a shadow in his heart. He didn't want to see it a second time. After the power of the Nether King killed the Earth Dragon Ancestor Dragon, it dissipated. King Yu immediately took a step forward and descended towards the chief pavilion master and the others. We must not let them escape. Frenzy came back to his senses and stared at the disappearing figures of the group as he transmitted his voice. However, not long after, King Yu stopped in the void. Why did you stop? Frenzy frowned. King Yu shook his head and said, You can't catch up. It's a waste of time. Frenzy fell silent. Indeed, they were both at the greater perfection realm and also had a supreme divine art. It was impossible to catch up to the other party. It seemed that it wasn't as easy to get rid of the ancestral dragons. However, it wasn't for nothing this time. At least, he had gotten rid of one ancestral dragon. This way, he would have one less strong enemy when fighting with the dragons in the future. King Yu asked, Are you still going back to their side? Not for the time being. I'll go with you to the ancient city of the Nether King to see the treasure you mentioned. You're a man. Don't go back on your words. Frenzy pondered for a while and smiled. Go back on my words? My blood demon race values promises. Moreover, it's because of you that my ancient city of the Nether King could escape this calamity. I will definitely not treat you unfairly. King Yu smiled. If it wasn't for Frenzy informing them, their blood demon race would probably be defeated by Yi Zhong's group one by one. The consequences would be unimaginable. Value promises? Frenzy was stunned. He really didn't notice. However, it didn't seem like he was fooling him. King Yu frowned and said, However, it will be troublesome if you go back now. What trouble? Frenzy was suspicious. If you go back, they will definitely ask how you escaped from me. How are you going to explain that? King Yu asked. Isn't that simple? Anyway, they have already seen me like this. They won't suspect that I am the one who informed you. When the time comes, I'll find a random reason. Or rather, seeing that I am the disciple of the Black Dragon Ancestor Dragon, you want to use me to threaten the Black Dragon Ancestor Dragon and imprison me in the ancient city of the Nether King. Then, I found a chance to sneak out. Anyway, as long as they don't suspect me, everything will be fine. Madman said, You're really smart. King Yu shook his head and laughed. When Frenzy and King Yu returned to the ancient city, they found out that the 10 commanders hadn't returned yet. What happened? The Yu King frowned. We didn't see Zhong or the Beast Emperor in the canyon. Did they stay behind to hold back the 10 commanders? Madman pondered for a moment and said with a frown, It's possible. Yu Wang said. Then hurry up and go take a look. If we can capture Yi Zhong and the Beast Emperor, then we'll have a complete victory this time. Madman said. All right. The Ghost King nodded. He looked at a blood-eyed giant beside him and instructed, This little brother is now an honored guest of my blood demon tribe. You must receive him well. Yes, That blood-eyed giant replied, respectfully. The King turned around and quickly disappeared into the mountains outside the city. Little brother, I hope you can forgive me for offending you last night. That blood-eyed giant looked at Madman and said with a smile. He was the blood-eyed giant that guarded the ancient city. He was at the perfection ninth heaven realm. It's fine. Madman waved his hand and asked with a smile, Where's the wolf cub that came with me? That blood-eyed giant said, To tell you the truth, we're also looking for it. Why? Madman's expression changed. After you left, we instructed Blood Bamboo to follow it. But this wolf cub is too slippery. It disappeared in the blink of an eye. Before the dragons came, Blood Bamboo also told it to leave the ancient city, but it refused to listen. After the dragons escaped, we've been looking for it. Until now, we still haven't found it. That blood-eyed giant said, This white-eyed wolf is really worrisome. Madman rubbed his forehead. Little brother, I don't want to hide it from you. We suspect that it might have died in the battle. After all, its cultivation is too weak. Blood-eyed giant said, Dead. Madman was slightly taken aback. He shook his head and said with a smile, It's impossible for it to die. Impossible. Blood-eyed giant frowned. You don't understand it. Anything can happen to anyone, but it's impossible. Madman said. Blood-eyed giant said suspiciously, Since it's fine, why doesn't it show itself? Madman lowered his head and pondered. Suddenly, he looked at Blood-eyed giant and said, May I ask, where is your heaven-defying divine artifact? This, Blood-eyed giant hesitated. Madman looked up at the palace in the center of the ancient city and said, If I'm not wrong, it should be in that palace. Although Yi Zhong and the others didn't tell him where the heaven-defying divine artifact was hidden, he saw the entire process of the ancestral dragons entering the ancient city. The various ancestral dragons headed straight for the palace in the ancient city. This meant this heaven-defying divine artifact should be in that palace. It was indeed in there in the past. But after the dragons created such a ruckus, I reckon that Lord Ghost King has this heaven-defying divine artifact with him. So, let's wait for Lord Ghost King to come back and tell you personally. Blood-eyed giant said. All right. Madman nodded. If the heaven-defying divine artifact was really with Lord Ghost King, then the white-eyed wolf wouldn't be able to do anything. That's right. He had already guessed that the white-eyed wolf was definitely hiding in that palace and looking for the heaven-defying divine artifact. Because this was in line with the white-eyed wolf's character. Time passed by bit. The huge ancient city had already regained its tranquility. They didn't reject Madman as a guest at all. The feeling that the blood demon race gave Madman was that they were warm, hospitable, honest, and simple. About 1 hour passed. Swoosh! 11 figures pierced through the air and entered the ancient city. Where are Yi Zhong and the Beast Emperor? Madman immediately went forward and asked. Lord Ghost King shook his head and said, When I rushed over, they had already escaped. Even the 10 of you can't hold them back? Madman looked at the 10 commanders and frowned. The 10 commanders were rather embarrassed. It's not their fault. After all, Yi Zhong and the Beast Emperor have both grasped the law of fire. Lord Ghost King said, Yeah, compared to the ancestral dragon, Yi Zhong and the Beast Emperor are the most difficult to deal with. They have always been a formidable opponent of our blood demon race. Shweta said, It seems that we have underestimated the 2 of them in the past. Madman muttered. In the past, because the 10 ancestral dragons all had heaven-defying divine artifacts, the threat of Yi Zhong and the Beast Emperor was far lower than the 10 ancestral dragons. After this battle, he realized that without the heaven-defying divine artifacts, the 10 ancestral dragons were no match for Yi Zhong and the Beast Emperor. It was no wonder that Long Zun thought so highly of them and didn't even use the fate contract to control them. However, Long Zun didn't know that the Beast Emperor was one of the 4 Thearchs of the Dragon Slayer Palace. Not good. Suddenly, Madman's expression changed slightly. What's wrong? Lord Ghost King and the 10 commanders looked at him in surprise. There's something you don't know. This Yi Zhong has always been someone we want to rope in. As for the Beast Emperor, he is our enemy. Now that the Beast Emperor is alone with Yi Zhong, will it be disadvantageous to Yi Zhong? Madman said. Someone we want to rope in. Lord Ghost King was stunned. That's right. In the outside world, there is a faction called the Dragon Slayer Palace. The mission of the Dragon Slayer Palace is to destroy dragons. And an old friend of mine is one of the leaders of the Dragon Slayer Palace. This leader is also Qin Feiyang's ancestor. The reason why we want to rope in Yi Zhong is because we value his strength and intelligence, Madman said. So that's the case. If you can really rope in Yi Zhong, it will indeed be a good thing for you. Lord Ghost King nodded with a smile. It will be difficult. To tell you the truth, this time we entered hell to deal with the dragons and the Beast Emperor. On the other hand, we want to find an opportunity to persuade Yi Zhong. If there's no other way, we will forcefully control him, Madman said. This king knows a little about Yi Zhong's loyalty to the dragons. It is a little difficult, but this king believes that with your intelligence, you will definitely be able to do it. Lord Ghost King smiled. Me? Forget it. I don't have this ability. I am also afraid of these troubles. This matter still needs my brother, Qin Feiyang, to deal with. Madman shook his head. Qin Feiyang, this king is really curious. What kind of person is he? Even you admire him so much. Lord Ghost King said, When you see him in the future, you will know. Madman smiled and asked, What about the treasure you mentioned? Kinyu laughed involuntarily. He turned his head to look at the 10 great commanders and said, Immediately send people to search for Qin Feiyang. Yes, the 10 commanders bowed and replied, Right. What does this Qin Feiyang look like? Lord Ghost King looked at Madman and asked. Madman waved his hand and condensed the appearance of Qin Feiyang's original body. Lord Ghost King looked at it curiously and couldn't see anything from the illusory image. He then looked at the 10 commanders and said, Did you see it clearly? Yes. The 10 commanders nodded. Lord Ghost King said, Then quickly go and arrange it. You must find him as soon as possible and invite him to the ancient city. Remember, invite him. Understood. The 10 commanders nodded and turned to leave. Thank you. Madman looked at Lord Ghost King gratefully. Your friend is also this king's friend. There is no need to be polite. Come, this king will bring you to see that treasure. Lord Ghost King smiled and flew towards the palace with Madman. As for that 9th heaven realm blood-eyed giant, it also returned to the plains and continued to guard the ancient city. Very soon, Lord Ghost King and Madman appeared in front of the palace. At the same time, in the palace, a palm-sized small beast was standing in the middle of the palace and looking around suspiciously. That's right, it was the white-eyed wolf. Strange. I have searched the entire palace but didn't see any heaven-defying artifact. Where exactly is it hidden? Not good. There is someone. Suddenly, it shuddered and hurriedly took a big step forward and hid behind a stone chair, staring at the palace door nervously. Chapter 26:16. Kinyu and Madman entered the hall one after another. Little Madman. The white-eyed wolf was stunned for a moment before a trace of joy appeared in his eyes. No. If I go out now, I'll be caught by Kinyu. How am I going to explain it then? Tell him that he's just strolling around for fun? Only a fool would believe that. The white-eyed wolf continued to hide behind the stone chair. Dong! Suddenly, with the sound of footsteps, a female giant ran to the door. King Yu. It was Xue Zhu. At this moment, she looked anxious. What's wrong? King Yu turned to look at her suspiciously. Xue Zhu said, that wolf cub is gone. What? King Yu was stunned and said angrily, Didn't I tell you to keep an eye on it? I did, but I couldn't do it. Xue Zhu looked aggrieved. King Yu said, Then hurry up and look for it. Xue Zhu lowered her head and said, I've already searched inside and outside the ancient city. Then go outside the city and look for it. King Yu said, Okay. Xue Zhu nodded and was about to leave, but at this moment, Madman looked at Xue Zhu and said with a smile, Xue Zhu, there's no need to look for it. Huh? Xue Zhu was stunned. King Yu also looked at Madman suspiciously. Wasn't the wolf cub his friend? But why didn't he look worried at all? Madman smiled and turned to scan the hall. White-eyed wolf, stop hiding. I know you're here. Come out. Huh? Xue Zhu and King Yu immediately scanned the hall. The wolf cub was here? What is this little lunatic trying to do? The white-eyed wolf couldn't help but frown. Madman shouted impatiently, Don't dawdle. Hurry up. Damn you! The white-eyed wolf knew that he couldn't hide anymore. He jumped out from behind the stone chair and glared at Madman. It's really here? King Yu and Xue Zhu were stunned. But why was it hiding here? Madman said disdainfully, I knew you wouldn't stop. You're such a busybody. The white-eyed wolf glared at him. He then looked at the Ghost King and Xue Zhu. Seeing the strange expressions on their faces, he smiled sheepishly and said, If I say that I'm here to take a stroll, you won't believe me, right? Nonsense. Are there people wandering around here? The corners of King Yu's mouth twitched as he said angrily. The white-eyed wolf laughed dryly and said, Well, I still have something to do. Sorry to disturb you. Please continue. After saying that, he ran outside. Who do you want to harm this time? Madman grabbed the white-eyed wolf's tail and said with a dark expression, Disaster, look at what you're saying. Do I look like a wolf who wants to see the world in chaos? Let go or I'll bite you. The white-eyed wolf grimaced. It's not a resemblance, it's a fact. Madman glared at it, then turned to Xue Zhu and said, I'm sorry I've troubled you. From now on, I will personally look after it. No, no. Xue Zhu waved his hand. The Ghost King looked at Xue Zhu and waved his hand. Then you can leave first. Yes. Xue Zhu responded respectfully and turned to leave. The Ghost King looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, You're looking for a heaven-defying divine artifact, right? Unfortunately, it's not here. Then where is it? The white-eyed wolf instinctively asked, but then realized that he had spilled the beans. He hurriedly waved his little paws and said, No, no, definitely not. The Ghost King's veins were bulging. Was there any point in quibbling? White-eyed wolf, don't you know that a person's instinctive reaction is the most realistic? Madman laughed. Bastard, which side are you on? The white-eyed wolf glared at him. Madman chuckled and said, I'm on the side of justice. I exist to destroy evil forces like you. Shameless? The white-eyed wolf rolled his eyes at him. Madman also rolled his eyes and said, Stop fooling around. The Ghost King has a treasure to show us. Treasure? The white-eyed wolf was stunned. Then his eyes lit up. He looked at the Ghost King and asked anxiously, What treasure? The Ghost King said, If I say it's a heaven-defying divine artifact, would you believe me? Only a ghost would believe you. The white-eyed wolf pouted. You know it too. You're still strolling around? How bored are you to come here for a stroll? The Ghost King looked at the white-eyed wolf in disdain. He finally understood what Madman said to him before he left. This wolf cub was not easy to deal with. Staying in the Ghost King's ancient city was just asking for trouble. Huh. The white-eyed wolf smiled embarrassedly. The Ghost King did not pursue the matter. After all, he was Madman's friend. Don't resist. I'll bring you to a place." With that, the Ghost King waved his hand. Madman and the white-eyed wolf instantly felt their bodies lighten. In the next instant, they followed the Ghost King and appeared in an unfamiliar place. This was a huge stone room. In the entire stone room, other than a long metal box placed in the left corner, there was nothing else. It seemed extremely spacious. The white-eyed wolf and Madman stood in the middle and looked around curiously. "This is the second floor of the main hall. Only I and the 10 commanders can enter and exit freely." The Ghost King said, "It's really the second floor?" The white-eyed wolf mumbled and immediately looked at the only metal box in the corner. Could it be that it contained a heaven-defying divine artifact? When he thought of this, his heart burned with excitement and he hurriedly ran toward the metal box. Seeing this, the Ghost King couldn't help but frown. "White-eyed wolf, what are you doing?" Madman said angrily. The white-eyed wolf roared without turning his head. "Don't stop me, otherwise don't blame me for falling out with you." Madman's face was filled with anger. "This time, I really have to stop you," the Ghost King said in a deep voice. His big hand grabbed the air, and the metal box immediately rose into the air and landed in his hand like a stream of light. The white-eyed wolf was stunned and hurriedly turned to look at the Ghost King, saying, "I'm just looking. I have no other intentions." "Do you think I'm an idiot?" The Ghost King snorted coldly. "Why can't there be more trust between people?" The white-eyed wolf shook his head and sighed, his face filled with helplessness. "Trust? To hell with it." The Ghost King sneered. Madman glanced at the white-eyed wolf and asked curiously, "Ghost King, is there really a heaven-defying divine artifact in this metal box?" The Ghost King nodded. When the white-eyed wolf heard this, his eyes immediately glowed green. If it weren't for the fact that he was afraid of the Ghost King's strength, he would probably have snatched it by force. Madman smiled and said, "Then there's no harm in taking a look." The white-eyed wolf nodded and said, Yes, we'll just take a look and definitely won't snatch it." Looking at the white-eyed wolf's covetous look, the Ghost King couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. "Actually, a heaven-defying divine artifact has no value to our blood demon race." "What do you mean?" The white-eyed wolf's brain couldn't wrap around it. Madman said, "There are rules in the Nether King's hell, so we can't use heaven-defying divine artifacts. Naturally, it has no value." "That seems to be the case." The white-eyed wolf nodded and looked at the Ghost King. "Then why are you still keeping it? Why don't you give it to us as a favor?" "Do you think I need a favor from you?" The Ghost King found it funny. "Why are you so stubborn?" The white-eyed wolf was a little annoyed. "There's a seal on this metal box. If the seal is opened and the heaven-defying divine artifact appears, the power of rules will descend. At that time, you will know the consequences." The Ghost King said, "Seal?" The madman was slightly taken aback. He scanned the metal box and discovered that there was indeed a layer of mysterious power on the metal box. The white-eyed wolf asked suspiciously, "Since there's a seal, how do you know that there's a heaven-defying divine artifact inside?" "This is the first time you've come to the Nether King's hell, so there's some common knowledge that you don't know. It's actually very easy to distinguish whether a box contains a heaven-defying divine artifact or a heaven-defying divine art. Because in the Nether King's hell, other than heaven-defying divine artifacts and divine arts, there won't be any seals. In other words, as long as you encounter something with a seal on it, there will definitely be a heaven-defying divine artifact inside. As for this metal box, it's rectangular. Judging from this, it's definitely not a divine art, because divine arts don't need such a big box to contain them. Naturally, there's a heaven-defying divine artifact inside." The Ghost King explained. So that's the case. The white-eyed wolf and the madman were suddenly enlightened. Then, who sealed these heaven-defying divine artifacts? Also, how can we undo these seals? The white-eyed wolf asked. I really don't know who sealed these heaven-defying divine artifacts. It might be the ruler of the Nether King's hell, or it might be someone else. But I know a way to undo the seals. As long as you leave the Nether King's hell, the seals will be undone by themselves. The Ghost King said. The madman frowned and said, In other words, we can't open the metal box at all. Yes. The Ghost King nodded. Since you can't open it, why are you stopping me? The white-eyed wolf was dissatisfied. There's always an accident. What if for some reason you have to break the seals and open the metal box? This king is doing this for your safety, said the king. After all, the two of you can absorb the power of evil. You can't be treated as ordinary people. The Ghost King said, That's true. The madman nodded. The Ghost King was doing this for their own good. They had to accept this kindness. The white-eyed wolf asked, Then what's the treasure you mentioned? The Ghost King looked around and said with a smile, It's this stone chamber. The madman and the white-eyed wolf sized up the stone chamber in shock. This was a treasure? Why didn't they feel anything at all? On the surface, you definitely can't see anything. But in fact, this is the true treasure. The Ghost King said. The white-eyed wolf urged, Don't keep us in suspense. Tell us directly. The Ghost King said, I believe you should have heard of the time array. Yes. The white-eyed wolf and the madman nodded. How could it be just heard? They were very familiar with it. Wait a minute. You mean there's a time array here? The white-eyed wolf was bewildered. Yes. And the time array here is 500 years per day. The Ghost King smiled. What? 500 years per day? The man and the wolf were dumbfounded. This was too shocking. It was even more terrifying than the ancient castle and the black tortoise world. This wasn't a joke, right? How could there be such a heaven-defying time array in this world? 500 years per day. What kind of concept was this? Even the half-step ninth heavens realm white-eyed wolf would definitely be able to break through a small realm before long. Chapter 26:17. I'm not joking with you guys. In the future, you guys can cultivate here as you wish. There are no additional conditions. The Ghost King smiled. Really? The white-eyed wolf asked. Yes. The Ghost King nodded. The white-eyed wolf was extremely excited. This was indeed more valuable than a heaven-defying artifact. Although a heaven-defying artifact was very powerful, it was ultimately an external object. How could it be more important than one's own cultivation? The lunatic was also rather excited. But suddenly, he frowned and looked at the white-eyed wolf. You seem to be happy too early? Why? The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. The Ghost King also looked at the lunatic in confusion. We don't have any soul stones. The lunatic smiled bitterly. The white-eyed wolf was dumbfounded. That's right. He and the lunatic didn't have any soul stones. They were all with Qin Feiyang. Without soul stones, no matter how powerful the time array was, it wouldn't be of much use. If I knew this would be the case, I would have gotten some soul stones myself. The white-eyed wolf was very regretful. The lunatic looked at the Ghost King and asked, Do you guys have any soul stones here? The white-eyed wolf also looked at the Ghost King expectantly. I've heard of soul stones, but I don't have any. After all, you guys have also seen that the living beings of the Nether King's hell rely on the evil force to cultivate. The Ghost King shook his head. When the ingrate heard that, disappointment filled his face. Who cares? Without soul stones, we'll just absorb the evil force to cultivate. The Ghost King has already sent someone to look for Qin Feiyang. With the blood demon race's understanding of the Nether King's hell, I believe they'll be able to find him soon. The lunatic comforted. That's the only way. The white-eyed wolf nodded. Although absorbing the evil force wasn't as fast as refining soul stones, they could only make do for now. 500 years in a day, 5,000 years in 10 days, and 50,000 years in a day. If they couldn't find Qin Feiyang, they could just use time to break through a small realm. Madman pondered for a moment and asked, Ghost King, can the evil power outside enter this stone room? Of course. We used to absorb the evil energy here to cultivate. The Ghost King waved his hand, and 2 windows appeared in the originally sealed stone room. They could clearly see the outside. The evil energy outside immediately surged into the stone chamber. Then let's begin. The madman sat cross-legged on the ground, and a powerful suction force appeared. The evil power immediately surged into his body. The white-eyed wolf also lay on the ground, and a terrifying suction force appeared on its body, causing the evil energy to continuously rush into its body. The 2 of them absorbing at the same time caused a huge commotion. The evil power in the entire ancient city of King Yu was gushing towards the stone room. I can really absorb it. Furthermore, their speed of absorption is even faster than our blood demon clan. King Yu stood at the side and looked at this scene with a shocked expression. 1 day, 2 days, only 3 days passed. 1/3 of the power of evil in the entire ancient city of King Yu had been absorbed by the man and the wolf. Lord King Yu, we can't go on like this. The evil energy is being absorbed by them. How are we going to cultivate? Very soon, the Blood Demon clan began to complain to the Ghost King. The Ghost King didn't expect that the man and the wolf's absorption speed would be so terrifying. It was like a bottomless pit that couldn't be filled. 10 days passed. The white-eyed wolf and the madman were no longer satisfied, and they began to increase their efforts to absorb the evil energy outside the city. The Blood Demon clan could forget about absorbing the evil energy now. All the evil energy that they absorbed was surging into the stone room. The entire stone room was shrouded in a blood mist, and the density was extremely shocking. Half a year passed. No trace of the evil energy could be found within a radius of a few billion miles. The appearance of this phenomenon caused a commotion among the beasts in the area. The Blood Demon clan was even more helpless. Why didn't the Ghost King do anything about it? What's going on? Where's the evil energy? This morning, a blood-eyed giant at the Great Perfection Ninth Heaven Realm was galloping above a mountain range, scanning the area in front of him. In the void, he couldn't sense the existence of the evil energy at all. Did something happen in the ancient city of the Ghost King? The blood-eyed giant's eyelids twitched, and he quickly accelerated towards the ancient city of the Ghost King. Soon, he entered the plain. Blood 10th? The blood-eyed giant guarding the plain opened his eyes. When he saw the blood-eyed giant that suddenly appeared, there was a trace of surprise in his eyes. That's right. The blood-eyed giant that entered the plain was Blood 10th, who was ordered to report the situation of the mysterious Sky Ancient City to the Ghost King. Bloodboat, what's going on? Why can't I sense the evil energy? Blood 10th was bewildered. Bloodboat couldn't help but reveal a bitter smile and said helplessly, Go in. You'll know once you enter. All right. Blood 10th nodded and flew into the ancient city of the Ghost King, heading straight for the palace. Soon, he realized that all the evil energy was rushing towards the second floor of the palace. What's going on? At the same time, the first floor of the palace. Is there still no news? The Ghost King sat at the top and looked at the 10 commanders below as he asked. Many of the clansmen that were sent out have yet to return. There is no news of Qin Feiyang for the time being. Blood first shook his head. No matter what, we must find him. The Ghost King said. Yes. Blood first nodded. Blood, too, looked at the top of the hall and frowned. Lord Ghost King, this has been going on for half a year. Our clansmen are complaining now. Isn't it just absorbing some evil energy? Frenzy is the benefactor of our blood demon tribe. We must know how to be grateful. We'll talk about it later. They will stay in the Nether King's hell for at most 1,000 years. When they leave, won't everything return to normal? Just let our clansmen bear with it for a while. The Ghost King said. Sigh. The 10 commanders sighed. Sometimes they couldn't help but wonder who exactly was the Blood Demon tribe. A human and a wolf cub. Their speed of absorbing the evil energy was even more ridiculous than the native Blood Demon tribe. Blood 10th from the mysterious sky ancient city is here to see the Ghost King. Suddenly, a respectful greeting came from outside. Blood 10th. The 10 commanders were stunned. Come in. The Ghost King said. Blood 10th strode into the hall and knelt on one knee in the middle of the hall. He said respectfully, Greetings, Lord Ghost King. Get up. The Ghost King said with a smile. Blood 10th got up. Blood 10th, why didn't you stay in the mysterious sky ancient city? Why did you come to our Ghost King's ancient city? Don't tell me you miss us. The 10 commanders teased. From the looks of it, they were old acquaintances. Miss you guys? You're thinking too much. Blood 10th rolled his eyes at them, but his face was full of smiles. The Ghost King asked, Blood 10th, you said you have something to see me about. What is it? Blood 10th hurriedly knelt on one knee again and said, Lord Ghost King, please forgive the city Lord's mistake. Mistake? The Ghost King was slightly stunned and frowned. Did something happen in the mysterious sky ancient city? Yes. Blood 10th nodded. Blood Dao said, Don't tell me it's humans again. It's them. Blood 10th said in disgust. Those damn bastards. Quickly tell us in detail. What happened? Blood Dao urged. It's like this, Shuel Lauscher described the situation in detail. Bastards. They actually killed so many of our clansmen. The 10 commanders were furious. The Ghost King could not help but frown. Lord Ghost King, the city lord gave them the mysterious sky ancient city because he had no choice. His original intention was to protect his clansmen. It's all because of these damn humans. They went back on their words and caused so many of our clansmen to die unjustly. Lord Ghost King, please show mercy. Blood 10th pleaded. The Ghost King pondered for a while and sighed. Indeed, you can't blame your city lord for this. Thank you, Lord Ghost King. Blood 10th was very grateful. The Ghost King asked, You said that a human helped you guys. Who is this person? This person is called Qin Feiyang. His cultivation is not very high, but his methods are quite powerful. Blood 10th said truthfully, Qin Feiyang? The 10 commanders were taken aback. The Ghost King's expression was also rather startled. It couldn't be so coincidental, right? What's wrong? Could it be that there's something wrong with this Qin Feiyang? Don't worry, he's still in the mysterious sky ancient city. I'll kill him immediately when I return. Blood 10th said. Wait a moment. The Ghost King waved his hand and a phantom appeared. This was Qin Feiyang's phantom. The Ghost King looked at Blood 10th and asked, Is the Qin Feiyang you saw him? Yes. It's him. Blood 10th nodded. It's really as the saying goes, one can wear out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it by chance. The Ghost King shook his head. Yes, the most important thing is that he actually helped our Blood Demon tribe. The 10 commanders were also very emotional. Fate was such a wonderful thing. What does this mean? Blood 10th was a little confused. Blood 10th, we're also looking for this Qin Feiyang. However, we're not going to kill him. We're going to invite him to the Ghost King ancient city. Blood 10th laughed. Invite him? Blood 10th was stunned. That's right. Half a year ago, the dragons planned to snatch our Ghost King ancient city's heaven-defying artifact. It was also a human who helped us. This human is Qin Feiyang's friend. Now he's on the 2nd floor. I believe you've seen it too. The evil force is because of him. Blood Tenth said. I see. Blood Tenth was enlightened. The Ghost King looked at Blood Tenth and said, Go back now and ask him to come to the Ghost King ancient city immediately. Wait. I'm a little worried. The Ghost King pondered for a while and looked at Blood Tenth. You'll go with him. You must ensure the safety of Qin Feiyang along the way. Yes. Blood Tenth replied respectfully. Then go. Don't tell him about Frenzy and Wolf Cub first. When he enters the Ghost King ancient city, we'll give him a surprise. The Ghost King smiled. Okay. Blood Tenth nodded and looked at Blood Tenth, saying, Let's go. Goodbye, Lord Ghost King. Blood Tenth bowed respectfully and got up to leave. The Ghost King said, Go back and tell your city lord to be careful next time. Yes. Blood Tenth nodded. After Blood Tenth and Blood Tenth left, the Ghost King shook his head and smiled, saying, It seems that Qin Feiyang and Frenzy are really fated with our Blood Demon tribe. Yes. Blood Two and the others looked at each other and nodded with a smile on their faces. Chapter 26:18. When Blood Tenth came, it took him half a year. Naturally, it would take him half a year to return. In total, it would be 1 year. Just reporting a single matter would take a year. If this were to happen outside, it would be an inconceivable matter. But it was very normal in the Netherworld King's hell. The mysterious Heaven Ancient City was relatively close to the ancient Kingu City. It was an even further ancient city. It was common for a trip to and fro the ancient Kingu City to take decades or even centuries. However, the Blood Demon race was already used to this situation. A few decades or a few hundred years would pass in the blink of an eye to them. Another half a year passed. Blood Tenth and Blood Eldest finally returned to the mysterious Heaven Ancient City. 1 year passed. There were no changes to the mysterious Heaven Ancient City. However, on the same day, Qin Feiyang opened his eyes. His cultivation level had reached the perfected Paragon God realm. In just 1 year, he had suddenly advanced by a small realm. To be honest, he was reluctant to leave now. Why don't I just stay here and cultivate in seclusion? In the palace of the mysterious Heaven Ancient City, 1 day was 200 years. If he stayed here until the day he left the Netherworld King's hell, he would definitely be able to reach the perfected Ninth Heaven realm. He might even reach the imperishable realm. Boom! Just as Qin Feiyang was thinking, a powerful aura suddenly descended from outside. Qin Feiyang was shocked. This aura belonged to the perfected Ninth Heaven realm Blood Demon race. He had seen the perfected Ninth Heaven realm in the mysterious Heaven Ancient City. Therefore, he could tell that the owner of this aura was not from the mysterious Heaven Ancient City. Wait. There's another aura. It's Blood Tenth. He has returned from the ancient Kingu City? In that case, this unfamiliar aura should belong to the Blood Demon race in the ancient Kingu City. Why did the Blood Demon race in the ancient Kingu City come to the mysterious Heaven Ancient City? To punish the one-eyed giant? Or is it because of him? Qin Feiyang frowned. At the same time, outside, the blood demons in the mysterious Heaven Ancient City were in a panic. Of course, they knew the commander. In the entire Netherworld King's hell, the commander was above everyone else. The commander actually came to the mysterious Heaven Ancient City. They were definitely here to punish the city lord. Grand Commander, I beg you to be magnanimous and forgive the city lord. The city lord was also forced. Many blood demons began to plead for the Cyclops. Shwed stood in the air above the ancient city. Shwed Lauscher stood at the side and looked at the worried clansmen below. He couldn't help but explain. Cough, cough. However, Shwed coughed dryly and stopped Shwed Lauscher. Blood Elder 11 was stunned. He looked at the great commander in confusion. Whoosh! With the sound of something breaking through the air, the Cyclops flew out from the palace and landed in front of Shweta. He bowed and said, Greetings, great commander. Yes. Shweta put his hands behind his back and nodded expressionlessly. He asked, "Do you know your crime?" "I know my mistake." The Cyclops nodded. Shwe said, "Then tell me, what mistakes have you made?" Seeing that Shweta was really here to cause trouble for the Cyclops, the blood demons below were extremely nervous. "I didn't dare to trust the humans so easily. I gave the mysterious heaven-ancient city to them and caused countless casualties," the Cyclops giant said. "And?" Shweta asked. "Nothing else." The Cyclops giant shook his head. "Are you sure?" Shweta frowned. "I'm sure." The Cyclops giant nodded. "Then what about Qin Feiyang? You actually let Qin Feiyang, a human, stay in the mysterious heaven-ancient city and even let him enter the second level to cultivate. Do you know how big of a crime it is to help a human? Let me tell you, this is a capital crime." Shweta shouted. "Capital crime! Great Commander! It's indeed wrong to let a human stay in the mysterious heaven-ancient city, but we owe Qin Feiyang a favor. Didn't Lord Ghost King always teach us to repay kindness? Great Commander, please don't kill the city lord. All these years he has managed the mysterious heaven-ancient city. Even if he didn't make any contributions, he still worked hard." The blood demons below trembled and hurriedly knelt on one knee to plead for the Cyclops giant. However, the great commander turned a deaf ear. The Cyclops giant lowered his head and said without any complaints, "I'm willing to accept my punishment. City Lord, let me out." But at this moment, Qin Feiyang's voice came from the palace. The Cyclops giant frowned and looked down at the palace. With a wave of his hand, Qin Feiyang immediately appeared outside. Qin Feiyang didn't hesitate and stepped into the sky and stopped beside the Cyclops giant. "Why did you come out?" the Cyclops giant asked telepathically. "Even if you don't come out, the great commander will go in and find me sooner or later." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and looked at the great commander. "It's not the city lord's fault. I insisted on staying in the mysterious heaven-ancient city." The Cyclops giant was stunned. Was he trying to absolve him? Shweta was also stunned. He originally thought that Qin Feiyang came out to absolve him, but he didn't expect that Qin Feiyang would speak up for the Cyclops giant. "We didn't misjudge him. This human is responsible." Shwe Laoshi and the blood demons below all looked at Qin Feiyang with admiration. Shweta looked at Qin Feiyang and said in a deep voice, "Do you know what the consequences will be? As long as it doesn't implicate the city lord and the blood demons in the mysterious heaven-ancient city, I will bear any consequences." Qin Feiyang said. "Even if you die?" Shweta asked. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Good. I'll grant you your wish." Shweda's eyes turned cold and he slapped at Qin Feiyang. The terrifying power even shattered the void. Qin Feiyang didn't move, but the Cyclops giant stood in front of Qin Feiyang and blocked Shweta. "What are you doing?" Shweta was furious. "Great Commander, Qin Feiyang is the benefactor of the mysterious heaven-ancient city. Aren't you biting the hand that feeds you by doing this?" The Cyclops giant roared. "Do you have the right to criticize me in front of you?" Shweta shouted. "I'm just protecting a benefactor. I don't want to disappoint those who have helped us." Although the Cyclops giant was almost half of Shweda's height, he stood straight and wasn't afraid at all. "How dare you!" Shweta shouted as his eyes flashed coldly. Qin Feiyang looked at the Cyclops giant and then at Shweta. He smiled and said, "Great Commander, right? Can you give me some time?" "What do you want?" Shweta frowned. "I want to challenge you. If I win, you let the city lord go. If I lose, you can do whatever you want with me." Qin Feiyang said. "Challenge me?" Shweta was shocked. Was this human kid crazy? The Cyclops giant and Shwe Laoshi also looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. A paragon god wanted to challenge a peak nine heavens realm? And the great commander of the blood demons? Wasn't this suicidal? Haha, Shweta looked at Qin Feiyong and suddenly laughed. Kid, you have guts. Okay, I'll satisfy you. As soon as he finished speaking, Shweta's cultivation suddenly began to plummet. Finally, Big Shwe suppressed his cultivation base to that of a great circle, transcendent God. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said proudly, Don't say that I'm bullying you. If you can force me back with the same cultivation base, I'll consider it your win. Ah. Qin Feiyong looked at Shweta in astonishment. Along the way, no one had ever dared to be so arrogant in front of him. Just force him back? How much did he look down on him? How is it? The great commander looked at Qin Feiyong provocatively. Qin Feiyong raised the corner of his mouth and smiled. It's not too late to take back your words. The great commander said, My blood demon clan has always been a man of his word. Good. Qin Feiyong nodded. His aura suddenly erupted, the power in his body surged out, and he threw a punch at the great commander with all his strength. However, the great commander didn't dodge at all. He didn't have any intention of defending. He just stood there, his expression full of contempt. Boom! Qin Feiyong punched the great commander, but he was shocked to find that the great commander was like a towering mountain, standing motionless in the void. This shocked Qin Feiyong. He had also experienced the physical body of the Blood Demon clan, but this great commander was much, much stronger than the ordinary blood demons. What's wrong? Is that all you've got? It's not even enough to scratch an itch for me. The great commander laughed, the disdain on his face even stronger. Amazing. Qin Feiyong let out a long breath and gave the great commander a thumbs up. You admit defeat just like that? It seems that you humans are indeed a bunch of trash. The great commander sneered. Admit defeat? I, Qin Feiyong, don't have the word admit defeat in my dictionary. A cold light surged in Qin Feiyong's eyes. He decisively activated the 3,000 incarnations and shouted, Send him flying! The 3,000 incarnations immediately swarmed forward. What the hell? The great commander looked at this scene in astonishment. Boom! 3,000 incarnations were equivalent to 3,000 Qin Feiyong. What kind of lineup was this? Besides, after being tempered by the heavenly tribulation, the strength and power of Qin Feiyong's physical body were much stronger than those of the same realm. Boom! Facing the bombardment of the storm, the great commander couldn't hold on any longer. He was sent flying and smashed into the mountain outside the city. He looked extremely embarrassed. Amazing. He said he would send the Grand Commander flying, and he really did. The faces of the blood demons below were full of admiration. It turned out that the strength of this human boy was quite strong. Whoosh! The great commander flew into the sky and looked at Qin Feiyong. He was a little angry out of humiliation. Did you see that? I didn't even make a move. Qin Feiyong laughed. He indeed didn't make a move before. He just watched the 3,000 incarnations beat up the great commander. The great commander patted the soil off his body and looked at the incarnations. A trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. They don't seem to be incarnations. Then tell me if they aren't incarnations, what are they? Qin Feiyong said. How would I know? Shweta glared at him angrily and shook his head. But they definitely aren't incarnations. Incarnations can't be so strong. Qin Feiyong didn't explain. He waved his hand and the 3,000 incarnations disappeared. He asked indifferently, Does this count as my win? Humph. Shweta snorted coldly, looking very unconvinced. But he was shocked. Just this method alone was probably unparalleled in this world. If this person was also at the peak 9th heaven realm, he might be able to kill him instantly. Compared to his method, this person's attitude was even more terrifying. Calm down, calm down. It was as if he wouldn't panic even if the sky fell. This human was indeed not a simple person. No wonder the dragons wanted to get rid of him so much. Chapter 26:19. Hurry up and tell me, is this considered my win? Qin Feiyang said impatiently. Initially, he wanted to take the heaven and earth chaos pill and try his luck to see if he could break through to the ninth heaven realm. If he was lucky enough to break through to the ninth heaven realm, he would try his luck with the commander. However, he did not expect that the commander would be so arrogant as to suppress his cultivation level to the same level as him. He even said that as long as he could force him to retreat, he would win. Wasn't this giving him a chance? He had never been afraid of anyone in the same realm. The commander could not put down his pride. After all, he was at the perfected ninth heaven realm and was above everyone in hell. However, he was defeated by a human boy. Moreover, it was in front of everyone. Wouldn't he become a joke in the future? However, at the same time as everyone was watching, he could not go back on his words. If he went back on his words, everyone would mock him. You win. In the end, the commander could only nod his head helplessly. He should not have suppressed his cultivation level. It was too embarrassing. The blood demon below asked, "What about the city lord?" Not guilty. The commander shook his head. Sure. Thank you, commander. Thank you, brother. The blood demon was overjoyed. Thank you, commander. The Cyclops also bowed to express his gratitude. The commander waved his hands and looked at Qin Feiyang. He snorted and said, "Human boy, do you dare to follow me to the ancient city of the King? Ancient city of the King? Qin Feiyang was stunned. This is Lord Yu's order. You have to go. I came here personally because I was ordered to bring you to the ancient city of the King. Once you go, it may be a dead end. Do you have the guts to do so?" The commander said expressionlessly. Qin Feiyang could not help but frown. "Why? You don't dare." The commander sneered. The Cyclops looked at Qin Feiyang and then at the commander. He asked, "Commander, what exactly does Lord Yu want to do?" "Don't ask what you shouldn't ask." The commander raised his eyebrows and chided. "Yes," the Cyclops replied respectfully, but there was a hint of hesitation in his eyes. "I'm fine." Qin Feiyang looked at the one-eyed giant and smiled. He then turned to the commander and said, "As long as it doesn't involve the mysterious heaven ancient city, I don't mind going anywhere." "All right. How righteous." "Then let's go." The senior commander laughed and didn't say anything else. He immediately turned around and flew out of the city. However, when he turned around, a trace of admiration appeared in his eyes. Qin Feiyang glanced at the blood demons below, then at Xuelaoshi, and finally at the Cyclops. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your care over the past year, City Lord. See you again." The Cyclops shook his head and reminded, "Be careful." "Yes." Qin Feiyang smiled and nodded at Xuelaoshi. He then turned and chased after the Grand Commander. Sigh. Looking at Qin Feiyang's back, the Cyclops couldn't help but sigh. Xuelaoshi walked to the Cyclops' side and looked at Qin Feiyang's back. He smiled and said, "City Lord, you don't have to do this. He will be fine." The Cyclops was stunned and asked suspiciously, "What do you mean?" Xuelaoshi shook his head and said, "The Ghost King didn't punish you in the first place." "What? He didn't punish me? Then why did the commander—" The Cyclops was stunned. It's very clear that Grand Commander wants to test Qin Feiyang's character. Xuelaoshi said, "I see." The Cyclops was enlightened. Therefore, this time, Qin Feiyang's trip to the Ghost King ancient city might be a good opportunity for him. Xuelaoshi smiled. "That's good." As for Qin Feiyang's character, according to my observations over the past year, there is definitely no problem. The Cyclops said, outside the city, after Qin Feiyang caught up with the commander, he turned to look at the mysterious heaven ancient city. Although it was only a short year, for some reason, There was a trace of reluctance in his heart. It might be because of the time array. It might also be because of those simple blood demons. The commander turned to look at him and said, "If you don't want to go, you can say it. I won't force you. If you don't force me, you will force the city lord and the others. Is there a difference?" Qin Feiyang said indifferently. The commander said in surprise, "You care so much about them." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Why, if I didn't calculate wrongly, you have only been with them for a year." The commander frowned. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Because I like them and admire them. Compared to humans, they are easier to get along with." "I see." The commander nodded in realization and snorted coldly. "That's true. At least we blood demons won't break our promises like you humans." Qin Feiyang hesitated for a moment before saying, "Actually, not all humans are like that. Who knows? All right, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's go. You're too slow. I'll carry you." With that, the commander swept up Qin Feiyang and tore through the air like lightning. After Qin Feiyang and the commander left, 2 men and a woman slowly walked out of the forest, not far away. "We're finally out." The one who spoke was the woman. She was about 8 meters tall and in her 20s. She was as beautiful as a fairy. She wore a snow-white dress and looked like a fairy. Leaving the mysterious heaven ancient city will be his doomsday. A young man beside her spoke. He was dressed in purple and held a folding fan in his hand. His long hair draped over his shoulders, and he looked rather elegant. However, there was a trace of gloomy killing intent between his brows. "Not necessarily. Do you know who the blood demon who brought him away is?" "He's the commander of the ancient city, Shweda. His strength is second only to the Ghost King." Another person spoke. This person was a burly man, and his expression was extremely gloomy. His aura had reached the peak 9th heaven realm, second only to the Ghost King. The purple-clad young man and the white-clad woman were both shocked. "However, it doesn't matter if it's just him alone. When the time comes, I'll hold him back. Du Yuntian, you'll be responsible for killing Qin Feiyang." The burly man said, "Understood." The purple-clad young man nodded with a smile. "Don't underestimate the enemy. Don't end up like Wu Baichuan." The white-clad woman said, "Don't worry, Your Highness. It's easy to deal with Qin Feiyang, who doesn't have a heaven-defying divine artifact and divine art." The purple-clad young man smiled confidently. The burly man glanced at the purple-clad young man and said, "Then let's go." Shweda didn't activate a supreme-grade auxiliary divine art. "When we catch up, we'll ambush them and catch them off guard." After saying that, the burly man waved his hand and swept up the 2 of them. With a mysterious step, they instantly disappeared. Half a month later, in the sky above a mountain range, 2 figures were moving as fast as lightning. They were Qin Feiyang and the Grand Commander. With Shweda, the Grand Commander, there were naturally no ferocious beasts blocking their way. Their journey was smooth and unobstructed. "Why don't you blood demons make something like a teleportation altar? This way you can save a lot of time," Qin Feiyang asked. "Teleportation altar?" The Grand Commander was slightly taken aback and asked, "Are you talking about the altars you humans use?" "Yes and no. I'm talking about the fixed altars, not the one-time teleportation altars," Qin Feiyang said. "For example, the teleportation altar between the Forgotten Continent and the Great Qin Empire. No matter if it's fixed or one-time, the Nether King's hell cannot be used." The Grand Commander shook his head. "That's really inconvenient," Qin Feiyang said. "It doesn't matter if you're used to it. I believe that in your world, those ordinary people without cultivation should be the same as us," the Grand Commander said. "More or less," Qin Feiyang nodded. "The world of ordinary people also used this most primitive method, because ordinary people were unable to activate the image crystal. tens of millions of miles ahead. Two figures stood side by side. It was the burly man and the white-clothed woman, but they didn't see the purple-clothed youth. The white-clothed woman said in a deep voice, "In order to find a chance to kill Qin Feiyang, we have been lurking outside the mysterious Sky Ancient City for more than half a year. We absolutely cannot fail again. Don't worry, this time he definitely won't be able to escape." The burly man laughed. Whoosh! Suddenly, dozens of figures rushed over from behind. The person in the lead was the purple-clothed youth. Behind him, there were a total of more than 20 people. Half of them were at the Great Perfection Ninth Heaven stage, and the other half were also at the Great Perfection Ninth Heaven stage. The white-clothed woman and the burly man turned their heads and were stunned. "Greetings, Lord Ancestral Dragon." "Greetings, Your Highness." The group of people landed on a mountain peak and respectfully knelt in front of the white-clothed woman and the burly man. "Du Yuntian, who are they?" The white-clothed woman was puzzled. "Your Highness, they are all from the Dragon God Palace. When I went to investigate the situation just now, I accidentally encountered them. When they learned of our plan, they shouted that they wanted to help us. I saw that their cultivation levels were not bad, so I took the initiative to bring them back." The purple-clothed youth said, respectfully. "I see." The white-clothed woman suddenly understood. She turned her head to look at the burly man, seeking his opinion. The burly man glanced at the group of people and pondered for a while before sending a voice transmission. "Your Highness, these people are indeed quite strong. Why don't we keep them as cannon fodder?" "Okay." The white-clothed woman nodded and looked at the group of people with a smile. "Get up." "Thank you, Your Highness." The group of people stood up and glanced at the white-clothed woman from time to time. Was this the true appearance of the dragon's princess? The burly man looked at Du Yuntian and asked, "Is there any situation nearby?" "Other than some ferocious beasts, I didn't see a single blood demon. You can rest assured." Du Yuntian smiled. "Very good." The burly man was delighted and shouted, "I can already sense Shui Da's aura. Everyone get ready. We must kill him in one blow." "Yes." The group of people responded respectfully and restrained their aura. They looked at the void in front of them and prepared to attack. A moment later, whoosh! Two figures flew over from the void in the distance. "It's really Qin Feiyang." The group of people's eyes flashed with killing intent. If they met Qin Feiyang outside, they would definitely not dare to have any thoughts. But it was different now. They were in the Nether King's hell. Qin Feiyang's methods were basically restricted. He was no different from an ordinary person. Killing him was as easy as flipping a hand. For them, this was also a good opportunity to make a name for themselves. As long as they could kill Qin Feiyang, they would definitely be valued by the dragons in the future. Soaring to the heavens in one step was not a dream. The dignified ancestral dragon actually hides your head and hides your tail to launch a sneak attack. Aren't you afraid of embarrassing the dragons? Qin Feiyang bellowed. Whoosh! 3 figures flew into the sky. It was the burly man, the white-clothed woman, and the purple-clothed youth. The purple-clothed youth waved his hand, and the folding fan returned to his hand. The crimson scimitar also returned to the burly man. Fire dragon, ancestral dragon, Du Yuntian. Qin Feiyang looked at the 3 people and said word by word. However, when he saw the white-clothed woman, he was slightly stunned. Who was this woman? So it's you. Shweta also stared at the burly man angrily. That's right. Unfortunately, I still underestimated your strength. Even such a sudden sneak attack couldn't kill you. Fire dragon, ancestral dragon said. You want to kill me with just you? Shweta laughed disdainfully. The injuries on his body had already healed. His aura was terrifying beyond compare. This is the blood demon race. Not only is he ridiculously strong, but his injuries also heal so quickly. It's really terrifying. The 20 or so people murmured, and a trace of fear crept into their eyes. What are you afraid of? Du Yuntian, you and I will restrain Shweda. The rest of you, go after Qin Feiyang. Fire Dragon, Ancestral Dragon, roared. Okay. Du Yuntian nodded. The two of them immediately grabbed the folding fan and scimitar and charged toward the commander. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, Du Yuntian, are you courting death? Courting death? Ha! Qin Feiyang, do you still think you are in the ancient realm? This is the Nether King's hell. Your heaven-defying divine artifact and heaven-defying divine art can't be activated. Killing you is as easy as crushing an ant. Du Yuntian laughed. Okay, then we'll see. Qin Feiyang smiled sinisterly and shouted in a low voice, Commander, retreat first. Retreat? They're just a bunch of ants. Is there a need? Shweda smiled ferociously. His huge hand was like a mountain as it slammed toward the 20 or so people. That's right. He wanted to kill these small fries first. Otherwise, if Qin Feiyang was held back by the Fire Dragon Ancestor Dragon and faced with the pursuit of these people, he would definitely be doomed. But how could Ancestral Dragon, the Fire Dragon, let him succeed? After all, he had fought with Shweda more than once. He was very clear about Shweda's strength. Even he and Du Yuntian could only restrain him. Fire Dragon, the Ancestral Dragon, decisively revealed his true body. A fire dragon, thousands of feet long, appeared out of nowhere. Flames surged around his body as he raised his huge dragon tail and slammed it toward Shweda's huge hand. Boom! The two collided with a loud bang. A destructive aura suddenly surged out. At the same time, Fire Dragon, the Ancestral Dragon, and the commander each took a step back. Go and kill Qin Feiyang, Du Yuntian shouted. The folding fan in his hand shone brightly and carried the power to destroy the world as it charged toward Shweda. Kill! More than 20 people immediately charged toward Qin Feiyang. Divine artifacts and divine arts made Qin Feiyang despair. Don't even think about it. Shweda roared. Divine power roared in all directions. A huge barrier appeared and instantly enveloped everyone. Only Qin Feiyang was outside the barrier. Break the barrier! The woman in white shouted. More than 20 people's divine artifacts and divine arts immediately blasted toward the barrier. As long as I'm here, no one can leave. Shweda's aura was like a rainbow. It was as if he could hold the pass against 10,000 people. He stomped his foot. Crack! Clang! Those divine artifacts were all shattered and the divine arts were annihilated. What? More than 20 people were dumbfounded. One had to know. Among those divine artifacts, some were legendary divine artifacts. Even legendary divine artifacts could be crushed with one stomp? How terrifying was his physical body and strength! At the same time, seeing this scene, Qin Feiyang decisively took out the Yin-Yang Chaos Pill and threw it into his mouth. Boom! His aura suddenly soared. What is he doing? The woman in white looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Boom! The Fire Dragon Ancestral Gragon also noticed this scene, and a deep sense of uneasiness emerged in his heart. He immediately controlled the machete and attacked the barrier. Humph! Shweda snorted and also took out a blood-red battle axe and hacked at the machete. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere. The machete was sent flying. Die! But at the same time, Du Yuntian arrived. The folding fan flew out of his hand and pierced into Shweda's back. Blood and flesh immediately flew everywhere. He originally wanted to pierce through Shweda's body, but Shweda's body was so strong that it defied the natural order. The folding fan only went 1/2 meter into Xue Da's back before it was blocked and could not go any further. A 1/2 meter wound was just a flesh wound for Xue Da, who is 90 meters tall. You human, you really don't know what's good for you. However, Xue Da was completely enraged. The power in his body surged crazily, and he slapped at Du Yuntian. Du Yuntian quickly raised his hand and blocked Xue Da's giant hand. He also controlled the folding fan and swept it out of Xue Da's body to block above his head. However, he underestimated Xue Da's power. Crack! Both of his arms broke one after another. Du Yuntian was soon unable to hold on. His whole body smashed into the barrier below like a meteorite, and he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. In fact, even the folding fan had cracked open. But even though Du Yuntian crashed into the barrier, it did not break. Boom! At this moment, outside the barrier, Qin Feiyang's cultivation suddenly soared to the peak of the 9th heaven realm. But it did not stop. It was still soaring. I must succeed. Qin Feiyang growled. This time, he must break through 2 small realms. What kind of elixir did he take? He can break through again. Inside the barrier, the woman in white and the others were very surprised. Don't worry about him. Kill Xue Da first. Your Highness, heal everyone's injuries. Ancestral Gragon of the Fire Dragon shouted. Kill. For a moment, the sound of killing shook the sky. The woman in white waved her hand, and a milky white divine light appeared and merged into Du Yuntian and the others. The injuries of these people immediately began to heal. Even the shattered divine artifacts were rapidly repairing themselves. Your Highness? Qin Feiyang was shocked and hurriedly looked at the woman in white. Who else could the Your Highness mentioned by Ancestral Gragon of the Fire Dragon be other than Princess of the Dragons? Qin Feiyang looked at Du Yuntian and the others and the artifacts. His eyes suddenly darkened. He looked at the woman in white again and said, So this is your true face? Yes. Princess of the Dragons nodded. All this time, she had been showing her true face to others. Therefore, not many people knew her true appearance. Facing the indiscriminate bombardment of the Fire Dragon, Ancestral Gragon, Du Yuntian and the others, Xue Da could not withstand it for a while. His injuries were getting worse and worse. He also glanced at Princess of the Dragons. The Blood Demon clan's greatest advantage was that they could summon the power of the evil sun to heal. If he was given time, he was confident that he could kill everyone with this advantage. But he did not expect Princess of the Dragons to have such a terrifying healing ability. One must know, back then, even a heaven-defying artifact like the Sunset Divine Bow was quickly repaired by Long Zun. Although Princess of the Dragon's cultivation was not as high as Long Zun's, her healing ability was not much worse than the power of the evil sun. In other words, with Princess of the Dragons, Xue Da's advantage was not that great now. If this continued, the dragons might win in the end. After all, not only did the dragons have the Fire Dragon Ancestral Gragon, but also Du Yuntian. As the young lord of the Dragon Slayer Palace, Du Yuntian was definitely not weak. And the cultivation of the 20 or so people was not bad either. The lowest was at the 9th heaven realm. Whether in terms of quantity or quality, they were not to be underestimated. Therefore, in comparison, Xue Da's situation was more worrying. Boom! Suddenly, a loud muffled sound came from Qin Feiyang's body. He was wild with joy. Heaven did not disappoint those who worked hard. He had finally succeeded in breaking the shackles of the Perfection Paragon. It can't be. Princess of the Dragons looked at Qin Feiyang in disbelief. Breaking the shackles of 2 small realms in a row? What kind of pill was this? It actually had such a heaven-defying ability. Chapter 26-21. However, Qin Feiyang, who was rejoicing, suddenly thought of something and his face became extremely ugly. Although the yin-yang chaos pill had helped him break through the shackles of the great perfection, it would still take some time for him to truly break through to the half-step 9 heavens realm. After all, this was not the past. For example, when he was still in the War King or the War Emperor, after breaking through the shackles, as long as he had enough battle chi pills or essence chi, he could instantly break through. But now, his cultivation was at the Paragon God Realm. The Paragon God Realm had already surpassed the War King and the War Emperor by too much. Even if he had enough soul stones, it would still take some time. But now, the crisis was right in front of him. If he delayed even a little bit, he might lose his life. The most important thing was, right now, he had to open the door of potential. Because if he missed it, he would have to wait until the great perfection 9 heavens realm. In other words, taking the yin-yang chaos pill now would not have any practical effect. Previously, he had been happy for nothing. What should we do? Looking at Shweta, who was getting more and more injured, Qin Feiyang could not help but frown. Why didn't this Luby listen? If he had listened to him and retreated first, he would not have fallen into such a situation. This commander has underestimated them. Right now, I can't even protect myself. You go first. Shweta shouted. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. Suddenly, he had a plan, looked at the Princess of the Dragons and laughed. Your Highness, there is something I think you will definitely be interested in. What is it? The Princess of the Dragons frowned. It's about Du Yuntian's true identity. Qin Feiyang said. Du Yuntian's eyelids suddenly twitched, and he shouted. Qin Feiyang, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to sow discord? Qin Feiyang joked. Do you think I'm trying to sow discord? Isn't that so? If you can't beat me, you'll use this method. I really admire you. Du Yuntian sneered, but in his heart he was extremely flustered. If Qin Feiyang really revealed his true identity, the dragons would definitely not let him go. Even if the dragons didn't believe him for the time being, they would investigate him after leaving hell. Because of Du Yuntian's panic, Shweta took advantage of the opening and sent Du Yuntian flying with a punch. Next, Shweta sent another palm strike at Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon, and Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon was sent flying. Following closely, Shwe Tao grabbed the blood-red battle axe and sent the 20 or so people flying. He instantly appeared outside the barrier and looked at Qin Feiyang. Why didn't you leave? Qin Feiyang said. I don't have the habit of abandoning my companions. Companions? Shweta muttered and asked. I don't think I'm your companion yet, am I? Since we're already together, we naturally have to advance and retreat together. Furthermore, these dragons are our common enemy. Of course I can't just watch as you die. Of course, this is also related to the blood devils in the mysterious heavenly ancient city. After all, you are their clansmen. I'll try my best to help. Now that we have a chance, let's retreat, Qin Feiyang said. Shweta stared at Qin Feiyang without blinking. Suddenly he laughed and said, You're indeed an extraordinary human. Qin Feiyang looked at him in shock. He could still laugh at this moment. I won't hide it from you. From the beginning, I've been testing you. Even if I let you leave first, it was also to test you. Actually, Lord King, you didn't punish the city lord of the mysterious, heavenly ancient city. And I'm here under Lord King Yu's orders to invite you to the ancient city as a guest. Shweta, testing. Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. Most of you humans are sinister and cunning, two-faced people. Therefore, I have to see through your character before I can bring you to the ancient city without worry. Shweta, I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization and said with a smile, Then what kind of person do you think I am now? A human worthy of being friends with our blood demon tribe, Shweta said. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. After all this time, he was just testing him. Wait a minute. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked at Shweta and frowned. At this moment, you still have the mood to test me. Does this mean that you're not afraid of them at all? Of course. If it was in the past, I would still be afraid when facing Ancestral Dragon. But now, Shweta looked up at Ancestral Dragon, Fire Dragon, and sneered, I'm not in your eyes at all. Boom. At the same time, Ancestral Dragon, Fire Dragon also broke the enchantment. Hearing Shweda's words, he sneered, We haven't seen each other for many years. Your strength didn't improve much, but your tone has improved a lot. Haha. Compared to the last time, my strength indeed didn't improve much, but in some aspects I've surpassed you. Shweta grinned. Could it be that you can break through to the complete undead stage? Ancestral Dragon, Fire Dragon sneered. Of course not. After all, there are rules and restrictions in hell. But these rules don't include the power of the law. As Shweta finished speaking, a terrifying, murderous aura roared out. This is Ancestral Dragon, Fire Dragon's eyes widened. Qin Feiyang also looked at Shweta in surprise. This murderous aura was even more terrifying than when he activated the kill character art. That's right. The law of slaughter. Shweta stared at Ancestral Dragon, Fire Dragon, and laughed. The law of slaughter. Ancestral Dragon, Fire Dragon's eyes trembled. This guy actually comprehended the law of slaughter. Qin Feiyang was also quite shocked. Those who could comprehend the power of the law, which one of them wasn't a genius. It could be said that, among the trillions of creatures, there was probably not one who could comprehend the power of the law. Wait. But after the shock, he suddenly realized the main point of this problem. Hell had no restrictions on the power of the law. Why didn't Yi Zhong die? If he had known earlier, would he still be in such a sorry state? The power of the law was an existence that surpassed all other powers, because the power of the law was the mystery of the universe. The reason why the heaven-defying artifacts were so powerful was because they were endowed with the power of the law. In short, the power of the law was the same as the heaven-defying artifacts and techniques. It could ignore the existence of realms. Let's go. Just as Qin Feiyang's clone was about to split up, Ancestral Dragon, Fire Dragon swept up Princess Long and the others, turned around, and used the supreme technique to escape without looking back. If there were other Ancestral Dragons present, he would dare to continue fighting. But now he was the only one. What was even more terrifying was that Qin Feiyang now knew that hell had no restrictions on the power of the law. One must know, Qin Feiyang also mastered the law of light. With Qin Feiyang assisting by the side, coupled with Shweda's law of slaughter, the people around him were not enough to fill the gaps between Shweda's teeth. This time, they really went for wool and came home shorn. Chase, Qin Feiyang said. Don't worry. I definitely won't let them escape so easily. Shweta smiled coldly. His divine power swept up Qin Feiyang, used the supreme technique, and chased after them. Qin Feiyang stared at the back of the group of people. At this speed, Ancestral Dragon's group would definitely not be able to escape. First of all, Ancestral Dragon's group had to divert their attention to refining the evil power, because if this evil power was not refined in time, it would be eroded sooner or later. But Shweta was different. As a blood demon, the evil power was a tonic for him. Next was at night. Once night fell, Shweta could transform. According to his observation, the transformed blood demon would not only increase his strength, but also his speed. At that time, even if Ancestral Dragon had the supreme technique, it would be difficult to escape Shweda's pursuit. In short, as long as Shweta did not lose track of them during the day, then at night, it would be the end of Ancestral Dragon's group. Qin Feiyang said, Commander, please release your pressure. Release pressure? Shweta was stunned. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Shweta looked at him suspiciously and released a trace of pressure. Qin Feiyang took out a supreme nirvana pill and threw it into his mouth. He shook his head and said, The pressure is not enough. What is this kid doing? Shweta became more and more confused and increased his pressure. Qin Feiyang began to open the gate of potential. But Shweta's speed did not slow down at all, and he followed closely behind Ancestral Dragon's group. Roar! A dozen breaths later, Qin Feiyang roared, and the gate of potential was finally opened. Although his body was covered in blood, he was quite excited. Okay. Qin Feiyang looked at Shweta and smiled. Shweta retracted his pressure and asked suspiciously, "What are you doing?" Opening the gate of potential. Qin Feiyang said, "What? The gate of potential can be opened with pills." Shweta was stunned. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Shweta was quite shocked and said, "Originally, I was a bit disdainful of these pills as they don't need the power of the evil sun and evil moon. But I didn't expect them to have such a magical side. Not everyone has this kind of pill that can unlock the door of potential. For example, the dragons don't have them." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "The dragons are greedy bastards. The heavens should take back everything they have." Shweta coldly snorted. "Isn't that so? But there's no other way. The heavens are unfair. Not only did they not take it back, but they are also taking care of them. You blood demons haven't been to the outside world either. Otherwise, you would know how terrifying the dragon race is." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "No matter how terrifying they are, aren't they just little bugs in the Nether King hell?" Shweta said in disdain. "Little bugs?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. He liked this analogy and then took out a soul stone and began to break through to the half-step 9 heavens realm. Anyway, he didn't need to chase after Ancestral Dragon's group. Time passed quickly and evening arrived. Not good. The blood demons are even more terrifying at night than during the day. Even without the law of slaughter, Shweta can kill us all. Ancestral Dragon, Fire Dragon, said in a deep voice. Back then, Yizhong and the others had chosen to take action during the day because they were afraid of the blood demons at night. Du Yuntian looked at the sky and said anxiously, "Then what should we do?" Ancestral Dragon, Fire Dragon, glanced at the 20 or so people, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He said, "Right now, we only have one method." "Please speak," Du Yuntian said inwardly. "Let these people be our shields." Ancestral Dragon, Fire Dragon, said. "What do you mean?" Du Yuntian was surprised. "Isn't it obvious? Abandon these people and wait for them to self-destruct in despair. This way, we can block Shweta and Qin Feiyang and take the chance to escape." Ancestral Dragon, Fire Dragon, said inwardly. Du Yuntian's heart trembled when he heard this. This Ancestral Dragon was really vicious. Chapter 26-22. At the same time, the 20 or so people were also burning with anxiety. However, they didn't realize that they were about to become cannon fodder. They even pinned their hopes on Ancestral Gregon. They thought that Ancestral Gregon would help them escape. However, the reality was cruel. Seeing that the evil moon was about to rise, Fire Dragon Ancestral Gregon decisively left those people behind, took Du Yuntian and Princess Dragons away without looking back. What? Those people were stunned in the void. In fact, they weren't stupid. They followed Ancestral Gregon because they thought that since they had helped him kill Qin Feiyang, he wouldn't leave them alone. However, they didn't expect that. Ancestral Gregon would be so heartless as to use them as shields. He was really blind. Why did he help the dragons deal with Qin Feiyang? You ungrateful bastards! I curse you to die a horrible death! After coming to their senses, some people roared at the backs of Ancestral Gregon and the other two. You'd better think about how to survive in the hands of Qin Feiyang. Of course, you can also self-detonate and die with Qin Feiyang. To be able to perish together with Qin Feiyang, it could be said to be an enormous honor for you all. When we return to the Divine Land, we'll sing your praises. Du Yuntian sneered without looking back. Although it was a little vicious, as long as he could escape, it didn't matter how much he sacrificed. Du Yuntian, don't be happy too early. Sooner or later, you'll become cannon fodder like us. Someone roared with resentment. Cannon fodder? I'm not as stupid as you. Du Yuntian glanced at Ancestral Gragon and Princess Dragons and sneered secretly. Boom! A terrifying aura rolled over. The bodies of the 20 or so incomparably furious people suddenly shook as they slowly turned around to look at Shweta and Qin Feiyang. What should they do? Who in the Divine Land didn't know that Qin Feiyang was a vengeful person? Those who offended him would never end well. Did they really have to self-detonate? They didn't want to. They were desperate to the extreme. However, Qin Feiyang just glanced at them and said, "Commander, don't worry about them." The group of people was stunned. Don't worry about them? What did he mean? Was it an illusion? How could Qin Feiyang be so magnanimous? But soon, they knew that it wasn't an illusion. Shweta and Qin Feiyang passed by them. This is the price of being in cahoots with the Dragon Clan. Take care of yourself. As they brushed past each other, Qin Feiyang left behind a few words. Sorry, we chose to help the Dragon Clan because we were foolish. Thank you. Thank you for not killing us. The group of people hurriedly knelt in the void and cried out in gratitude. However, Qin Feiyang ignored them. Shweta was a little confused and frowned. Why did you let them go? Ancestral dragon, ancestral dragon. SSSS, such a little trick. How could I let him do as he wished? Qin Feiyang sneered. The dragon race is truly vicious and merciless. Shweta's face was full of disgust. Although these people helped the dragons to attack us, the significance of killing them is actually not that great. The dragons are the ones who deserve to be killed. Qin Feiyang said, That's right. The ones who deserve to die are these mystical dragons. Shweta nodded. The night sky, the evil moon had risen more than half. Why is there no movement? Ancestral dragon, and the other two didn't sense the self-detonation for a long time and couldn't help but turn their heads to look. With one look, they were scared out of their wits. What was going on with Qin Feiyang today? Why didn't he attack those people? It was precisely because he understood Qin Feiyang's character that the fire dragon, ancestral dragon, came up with this vicious plan. However, he never expected Qin Feiyang to not play by the rules this time. You think I don't know what you want to do? Abandon them and force them to self-detonate to buy time for you to escape. Such a clumsy trick. Do you think I will let you succeed? Qin Feiyang sneered. Damn it. Fire dragon, ancestral dragon cursed. Old bastard. We have fought several times already. No matter what, you should have some understanding of me. But I didn't expect you to do such a stupid thing. Compared to you, ancestral dragon, those people are just a bunch of small fishes. For them, I will give up this opportunity to kill you? Qin Feiyang sneered. Fire dragon, ancestral dragon's face sank. In order to set up a trap to kill me, you guys didn't hesitate to open up hell to the public. Since you think so highly of me, I will definitely not let you guys down. Next, let's have a good fight in hell. Let's see who will have the last laugh. Qin Feiyang said and looked up at the night sky. The evil moon had completely risen. Hee, no matter how you dragons want to play, my blood demon tribe will accompany you to the end. Shweta laughed sinisterly and suddenly roared towards the sky. A violent aura suddenly surged out from his body. Boom! A large part of the mountains and rivers below collapsed in an instant. Fire dragon, ancestral dragon's expression changed. He decisively pushed Princess Dragons and Du Yuntian away and shouted, Go to the gathering place and meet up with Yi Zhong and the rest. What about you? Princess Dragons asked. I must stay and delay them. Otherwise we will all die. Du Yuntian, take good care of Her Royal Highness. If Her Royal Highness loses even a strand of hair, I dragons will not let you off. Fire Dragon, Ancestral Dragon shouted. Yes, Du Yuntian replied respectfully. Then he brought the dragon princess with him and flew away into the sky without looking back. No one can leave. At this moment, Shweta had successfully transformed. His body size had increased by 10 times. He was originally 90 meters tall, but now he was 900 meters tall. He was like a huge mountain with monstrous ferocity. As he waved his hand, divine power roared in all directions, and a huge barrier suddenly fell. Don't even think about it. Fire Dragon, Ancestral Dragon roared. The divine dragon body that was tens of thousands of feet long slammed into the barrier, and the barrier shattered on the spot. You're courting death. Shweta threw a punch, divine power surging. Ancestral Dragon's huge body immediately flew out and crashed into the mountains and rivers in the distance. The mountains and rivers shattered, and the earth cracked. With just one punch, Ancestral Dragon was seriously injured. It was a complete suppression, so powerful. Du Yuntian and Princess Dragons couldn't help but tremble when they saw this scene. They had seen the transformed blood demon tribe before, but it was the first time they saw such a powerful blood demon tribe. How terrifying was his strength and physical body to injure Ancestral Dragon with one punch. If I still let you escape after transforming, then I, Shweta, am not worthy of being the blood demon tribe's great commander. Shweta roared, divine power roared, and a barrier appeared again, instantly trapping Du Yuntian and Princess Dragons. Shatter! Du Yuntian released his aura and threw a punch at the barrier. However, although he was at the perfection ninth heaven realm, he couldn't shatter the barrier with one blow. This, the dragon princess, was dumbfounded. Shweta was so powerful after transforming. No wonder even the ancestral dragons were afraid when they talked about the transformed blood demon tribe. Shweta was now an invincible existence in the Nether King's hell. Roar! Accompanied by a loud dragon roar, Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon rushed into the sky, and its huge tail slammed into the barrier. Crack! The barrier shattered again. This meant that Ancestral Dragon's strength was actually not weak after transforming back to his true form. Don't look back, run! Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon roared. Its body that was tens of thousands of feet long rushed toward Shweta with surging dragon power. Du Yuntian once again took the dragon princess and fled madly. You really won't cry until you're in the coffin. Shweta stared at Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon, and his eyes were filled with intense killing intent. Two huge hands reached out and grabbed Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon's dragon claws. With a sudden force, the two dragon claws were torn off. Dragon blood instantly scattered in the sky. Roar! Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon roared in pain. This power, Qin Feiyang, who was standing on Shweda's shoulder, couldn't help but stare blankly at the scene. Get lost! After killing them, I'll take my time to deal with you. Shweda snorted and slapped. Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon was sent flying again. It wailed in pain and had no strength to fight back. The decision back then was not wrong. Being friends with the Blood Demon tribe was the wisest choice. Qin Feiyang muttered. Shweta was too powerful now. Even if he was at the perfection ninth heaven realm, he didn't have the confidence to defeat Shweta Boom. Shweta ignored Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon and took a step forward. The void shattered, and his speed was faster than during the day. In just a few blinks, he was close to Du Yuntian and Shweta. Don't even think about hurting the princess. Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon roared, and his suppressed cultivation suddenly erupted. Half-step immortal, initial immortal, initial immortal, great immortal. In almost an instant, he had recovered his peak cultivation. Immediately after, Ancestral fire dragon flashed and appeared behind Du Yuntian and princess dragons. An invisible force emerged and instantly sent the two hundreds of millions of miles away. At the same time, the power of the divine dragon rushed toward Shweta and Qin Feiyong like a torrent. What? Qin Feiyong was shocked. Xue Da's expression also changed, and he hurriedly retreated with Qin Feiyong. However, at the same time, firmament, an invisible force descended. It was like the might of the heavens, vast and mighty. It was the rule power. The power of laws arrived with a loud bang. The fire dragon ancestor dragon let out a blood-curdling scream before his body and soul were destroyed. The power of the divine dragon that rushed toward Shweta and Qin Feiyong was also erased by the rule power. That was close. Qin Feiyong patted his chest. If it weren't for Xue Da's quick reaction, he would have been dragged down by ancestral fire dragon. Sigh, what a pity. We didn't get rid of that woman. Xue Da's face was also full of regret. No matter how powerful the rule power was, it still needed a process to descend. Although this process only took a moment, it was enough to change everything with ancestral dragon's great immortal stage cultivation. Qin Feiyong looked at the direction Du Yuntian and princess dragons escaped and frowned. Commander, should we still chase? How can we catch up? The commander shook his head. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but feel regretful when he heard this. Such a good opportunity. But they didn't get rid of princess dragons and Du Yuntian. In fact, Du Yuntian was a little better. The threat wasn't that great. But princess dragons, if this woman wasn't eliminated, she would be a big problem. However, being able to eliminate ancestral fire dragon was a good harvest. Chapter 26-23. Qin Feiyong suddenly looked at Shweta and asked, Have you seen the princess of the dragons before? No. Shweta shook his head. Qin Feiyong asked suspiciously, Then why does it seem like you really want to kill her? Because of her healing ability. Although her healing ability isn't as good as Long Zun's, it's still quite a threat to the blood demon race. Shweta said in a deep voice, I see. Qin Feiyong nodded in realization. The healing ability of Long Zun and her daughter was indeed terrifying. Wait, Qin Feiyong was suddenly stunned and frowned. Long Zun has also been to the Nether King's Hell? She came the first time the Nether King's Hell opened. But it was only that one time. Shweta, the first time. Qin Feiyong frowned. When the Nether King's Hell opened for the first time, many divine dragons came in. Long Zun, the ancestral dragons, and the patriarchs and elders of the dragons. The total number was no less than 100,000. But in the end, less than 10,000 divine dragons survived from the hands of the blood demon race. Perhaps it was because of this lesson that when the Nether King's Hell opened, only Yizhong, the Beast Emperor, and the 10 ancestral dragons came in each time. Shweta, I see. Qin Feiyong nodded. Suddenly, he thought of the skeleton in the palace in the mysterious Sky Ancient City and looked at Shweta. I saw the skeleton of an ancestral dragon in the mysterious Sky Ancient City. What's going on? That's the skeleton of the blood dragon ancestral dragon. Shweta, blood dragon ancestral dragon. Qin Feiyong was stunned. That's right. The last time the Nether King's Hell opened, he entered the mysterious Sky Ancient City and slaughtered crazily. When we received the news, Lord Ghost King personally rushed over and killed him. After that, in order to pay tribute to our clansmen, we stripped off his dragon scales, pulled out his dragon tendons, and embedded his skeleton in the palace walls. This is also to intimidate the dragons. Shweta, I see. Qin Feiyong muttered. Although we've fought with the dragons more than once, this is the only complete divine body we've managed to preserve. As you can see, every time the ancestral dragon was defeated, he would either self-detonate or release the suppression on his cultivation. To be honest, these bastards are quite difficult to deal with. Big Shui shook his head and sighed. Of course, if they were easy to deal with, I would have uprooted them long ago. Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. Shui asked curiously, just what kind of grudge do you have with the dragons? Deep hatred. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. He smiled bitterly and said, now that I think about it, there really isn't any deep hatred between me and the dragons. If there is no deep hatred, then why do you want to get rid of them so badly? Shui was suspicious. Qin Feiyang answered, because they wanted to rob me and my ancestor of our bloodline power, so we had no choice but to retaliate. Bloodline power? Shui looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. A bloodline power that even the dragons wanted. What kind of bloodline power could it be? Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and asked, I wonder if you've heard of the purple gold divine dragon. Purple gold divine dragon? Shui nodded and said, I've heard of it. It's said to be the noblest bloodline power of the divine dragon race. Qin Feiyang said, my ancestor and I have the bloodline power of the purple gold divine dragon. What? Are you kidding me? You're a human. How can you have the bloodline power of the purple gold divine dragon? Shui looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. I don't know. I think only my ancestor can answer this question. Qin Feiyang shook his head. What a freak. No wonder the dragons want to get rid of you so badly. Shui found it unbelievable. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. The bloodline power was passed down by his ancestor. Was this his fault? Brother Qin. At this time, more than 20 people flew over. Huh. Qin Feiyang was stunned. What was going on? Didn't he let them go? Why did they come back? Brother Qin, you're really powerful. Even the ancestral dragon is not your opponent. Brother Qin, why don't you take us in? We'll listen to you in the future. A group of people ran over, their faces full of flattery and fawning. Hey, are you guys blind? What does this have to do with Qin Feiyang? Did he make a move? It's obviously me who's powerful. Shui raised his eyebrows. Yes. The group of people nodded repeatedly. Grand Commander, I'll have to trouble you to kill them. Qin Feiyang said lightly. What? The group of people's faces suddenly changed. I let you guys go just now because I want to deal with the ancestral dragon. But you guys are very insensible. You actually took the initiative to deliver yourself to me. Do you think I, Qin Feiyang, am such a generous person? Qin Feiyang sneered. Don't run. The group of people shouted anxiously and turned to run. What a bunch of idiots. Shui grinned. With a slap, more than 20 people's blood splattered across the sky. No one was spared. Qin Feiyang didn't have any sympathy for them. These people ran back not because they wanted to follow him, but purely because they saw him fighting with the blood demon race. They wanted to make use of this relationship to survive in the Hell King's hell. Commander, why did the King of Hell invite me to the ancient city? Qin Feiyang turned to look at Shui and asked suspiciously. Allow me to keep you in suspense. When we reach the ancient city, you'll know. Shui smiled mysteriously. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. The two of them didn't delay any further. After Shui returned to his original form, he continued to bring Qin Feiyang with him. To the dragons, this was a disaster. This was because the sacrifice of an ancestral dragon was a huge loss. However, to Qin Feiyang and Shui, this was just a small interlude. In the distance, on a mountain peak, Du Yuntian and the dragon's princess stood at the edge of the cliff, looking at the direction where the fire dragon ancestral dragon fell. Their faces were filled with sadness. Of course, Du Yuntian was just pretending. The death of the fire dragon ancestral dragon didn't affect him at all. Du Yuntian retracted his gaze and glanced at the dragon's princess, asking, "Your Highness, what should we do now?" "Go to the gathering place," the dragon's princess said. "Gathering place?" Du Yuntian's eyes flickered and he frowned. "Is Qin Feiyang going to let him go just like that?" "Let him go? How is that possible?" "I will definitely let him die in the Hell King's hell." The dragon's princess clenched her fists. Du Yuntian said, "When necessary, I will lend you a hand." "You!" There was a trace of disdain in the eyes of the dragon's princess. "Qin Feiyang mentioned your identity previously. Is there a problem with your identity?" "How can there be a problem with my identity? He is just trying to drive a wedge between us. If there is a problem, he would have said it long ago. Why is he still pretending to be mysterious?" Du Yuntian said. The dragon's princess looked at him deeply and didn't say anything else. She turned around and left. Du Yuntian looked at the back view of the dragon's princess, and a strange smile crept up from the depths of his eyes. This woman has both looks and status. If he could get her, he would be Long Zun's son-in-law. He could get whatever he wanted. How could he be the young lord of the Dragon Slayer Palace, then? Time flew by. Early in the morning, two figures cut across the sky like lightning and entered the sky above the plains outside the ancient city. "Greetings, Commander." The blood boat guarding the ancient city hurriedly stood up and bowed respectfully. Shweta asked, "Has there been any changes in the ancient city in the past year?" "No." Shweta shook his head and then sized up Qin Feiyang curiously. "He is the guest invited by King Yu, Qin Feiyang. Brother Qin, this is the guardian of the ancient city." Shweta introduced. "Greetings, Senior." Qin Feiyang cupped his fists. "Senior?" Shweta was stunned. This was the first time someone called him that. He wasn't used to it. However, it was also because of this that he had a good first impression of Qin Feiyang. "All right then. Keep an eye on him. I will bring him to see King Yu." "Shweta, yes." Shweta replied. The two entered the ancient city. When the blood demons in the ancient city sensed Qin Feiyang's aura, all of them ran out with curiosity. "Brother Qin, please don't be offended. After all, you humans are very unfamiliar to us. It is natural for everyone to be curious." Shweta. After getting along with Qin Feiyang for half a year, Shweta liked him very much. 3 months ago, they had already addressed each other as brothers. "It's okay." Qin Feiyang waved his hands. Suddenly, he noticed something strange. Why couldn't he sense the evil force in the ancient city? Very soon, under Shweda's lead, Qin Feiyang landed in front of the palace in the middle of the ancient city. "King Yu, are you here?" Shweta asked. "Come in." A loud and clear voice came from the main hall, and the door was opened. Shweta led Qin Feiyang into the main hall. What a powerful aura! When Qin Feiyang saw King Yu sitting at the top, he was shocked. The aura emitted by King Yu was several times stronger than Shweta. Shweta retreated to the side and smiled. "King Yu, he is Qin Feiyang." King Yu sized up Qin Feiyang. "Greetings, Senior King Yu." Qin Feiyang bowed. Then he stood in the middle of the hall in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing, allowing King Yu to examine him. "Not bad," King Yu muttered and asked curiously, "Aren't you afraid of me at all? Since you invited me to the ancient city as a guest, I'm sure you don't have any bad intentions. If you don't have any bad intentions, why should I be afraid?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "Haha," King Yu laughed and praised. "You do have some guts." "You flatter me." Qin Feiyang shook his head. Shweta looked up and asked suspiciously, "King Yu, why can't I sense the aura of the two above?" Hearing this, King Yu smiled bitterly. 2 months after you left, the evil power here was no longer able to satisfy them. So they decided to go outside the city at night to collect the evil force, because the evil force is stronger at night. And in the day, they would come back to refine and absorb it. Now, The king glanced outside, smiled, and said, "They should be coming back soon." I knew it. The evil force here isn't enough for them to absorb. The senior commander pouted. Their appetite is indeed a little big. King Yu shook his head. Qin Feiyong looked at the two of them suspiciously. What were they talking about? Chapter 26-24. I'm back. I haven't seen you all night. Did you miss me? Suddenly, a wolf howl sounded outside. This voice, Qin Feiyong's eyes suddenly trembled. Outside, the white-eyed wolf swaggered over the ancient city like a human. Madman's face was dark as he kept a distance from the white-eyed wolf. It was as if he was telling the blood demons below that he didn't know this idiot. The blood demons in the ancient city below also rolled their eyes. Who would miss a bastard like you? Don't be so cold. Hey, didn't I accidentally go in for a stroll when you were taking a bath? I'm actually a victim too. I didn't find the treasure, but I got the reputation of a scoundrel. The white-eyed wolf looked at a 5 to 6 meter tall female giant and said, "Bastard." The female giant cursed angrily and immediately hid in the room in shame. "And you husband and wife, I really didn't know you were doing something. If I knew, I wouldn't have run, and even if I was beaten to death." The white-eyed wolf looked at a couple and said aggrievedly, "You still feel aggrieved? Do you believe that I won't fight you to the death?" The couple glared at the white-eyed wolf angrily. The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips and looked at another blood demon. "I say, can you not look at me so bitterly? I just took your legendary divine artifact when you weren't careful. What's the big deal? Then give it back to me." "No, you call that taking? You obviously stole it." The blood demon roared. "Didn't I say that if you give me a supreme divine artifact, I'll return the legendary divine artifact to you?" The white-eyed wolf grinned. "Do you think I'm an idiot? If I had a supreme divine artifact, why would I give it to you? Wouldn't I keep it for myself? Can a legendary divine artifact be compared to a supreme divine artifact?" The blood demon was so angry that he was about to go berserk. "It's just a legendary divine artifact. Look at you." The white-eyed wolf shook his head. The blood demon was furious and roared, "Don't stop me. I'm going to fight this bastard to the death." "Forget it. After being together for so long, you still don't know its personality. The more you mess with it, the more excited it gets. Look at the blood bamboo. In the past year, it has already been angered to tears by it several times." Several blood demons around him hurriedly held him back and persuaded him repeatedly. Seeing the smug, white-eyed wolf, Madman's face darkened. "That's enough. Don't say that I didn't help you when you're surrounded." Inside the palace, Qin Feiyong's face was also dark. There was no other way. The blood demons' voices were too loud. It was hard for him to not want to hear it. Initially, he was quite happy to hear the white-eyed wolf's voice. He finally met up with the white-eyed wolf. However, when he heard the blood demon's angry roar, he was furious. Wherever he went, he would not be able to rest easy. Whoosh! Amidst the angry curses, the white-eyed wolf and Madman entered the palace. As soon as the man and wolf entered, they looked at Qin Feiyong in shock. This was too unexpected, wasn't it? Not only did King Yu not tell Qin Feiyong about the white-eyed wolf and Madman's situation, he also did not tell Madman and the white-eyed wolf about Qin Feiyong's whereabouts. As such, the man and wolf looked at Qin Feiyong, who suddenly appeared, and wondered if their eyes were playing tricks on them. Bastard! Qin Feiyong took a step forward and kicked. The white-eyed wolf immediately howled and flew out. King Yu and Shue stared at Qin Feiyong in shock. This was impressive. He even dared to beat up this little demon. You guys don't know that the only person in this world who can subdue the white-eyed wolf is him. Madman looked at the two of them and shook his head with a smile. He walked to Qin Feiyong and said with a smile, It's good that you're not dead. You too. Qin Feiyang smiled. Their relationship had already reached this stage. There was no need to say too much. They both understood. Little Qin Zi, I'll fight it out with you. The white-eyed wolf rushed in angrily. Huh. Qin Feiyang stared at him. Needless to say, the white-eyed wolf was terrified immediately. It's true that everything has its nemesis. King Yu sighed. If you dare to mess around in the ancient city again, I'll teach you a lesson. Qin Feiyang glared fiercely at the white-eyed wolf and looked at King Yu apologetically. I'm sorry to have caused you trouble. It's okay, it's okay. King Yu waved his hands. Madman asked suspiciously, Why did you come to the ancient city? The commander went to the mysterious Heaven Ancient City to find me. I didn't expect that you and the white-eyed wolf would be here. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. This was really a huge surprise. Mysterious Heaven Ancient City? Madman was stunned and turned to look at King Yu and Shweta. It's like this. Back then, the mysterious Heaven Ancient Cities, Shweta came to the ancient city and told me that Qin Feiyang was in the ancient city. Then I asked Shweta to go to the ancient city to fetch Qin Feiyang. Of course, we deliberately hid it from you guys in order to give you guys a surprise. King Yu smiled. Madman said, Sorry to trouble you. You're welcome. King Yu waved his hands. The white-eyed wolf asked, Little Qin Zi, what are you doing in the ancient city? I encountered some things. Qin Feiyang briefly explained the situation of Du Yuntian and the others. So that's the case. However, the 200-year time array in the ancient city can't be compared to the one here. The white-eyed wolf chuckled. There's a time array here too? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Of course. It's right above 500 years in a day, the white-eyed wolf said sneakily. Above? 500 years in a day. Qin Feiyang looked at the top of the hall in shock. This was more than double the number of time formations in the mysterious Heaven Ancient City. Wait a minute. Since it's 500 years in a day, why didn't your cultivation improve at all? Qin Feiyang sized up the white-eyed wolf and Madman. Nonsense. The soul stones are all on you. How can we cultivate? The white-eyed wolf said angrily. Madman also shook his head and smiled bitterly. Although we've been absorbing the evil power to cultivate during this period, the speed can't compare to refining the soul stones. That's true. Qin Feiyang smiled awkwardly. Madman might have some soul stones on him, but the white-eyed wolf probably didn't even have one. Wait a minute. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang suddenly looked up at Madman and asked in surprise, What did you just say? Absorb the evil power to cultivate? You only realize the main point of the sentence now. You're too slow, the white-eyed wolf said disdainfully. Shut up. Qin Feiyang glared at it and looked at Madman. You can absorb the evil power? Yes. Madman nodded. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked at the white-eyed wolf and asked, You can too? Of course. The white-eyed wolf nodded. Are you sure it's absorption? Qin Feiyang asked again. Of course. Can't you see that there's no evil power in this ancient city? It's just that I and little Madman have absorbed it all, the white-eyed wolf said proudly. You guys can actually absorb the evil power. This, Qin Feiyang couldn't wrap his head around it. He naturally knew the danger of the evil power. Others were afraid of it. But these two guys could actually absorb it? Jealous, right? The white-eyed wolf said proudly. Jealous. Qin Feiyang nodded instinctively, but he quickly said, Wait a minute, this isn't right. Why can you guys absorb it, but I can't? Is there a need to ask? It's because of your character. The white-eyed wolf said in disdain. Get lost. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. Everything was related to one's character. Actually, I'm different from the white-eyed wolf. The white-eyed wolf can only absorb the evil power. As for me, Not only can I absorb it, but even my divine power has turned into the evil power. What? Qin Feiyong was dumbfounded. The madman waved his hand, and a wisp of divine power appeared. Qin Feiyong sized up the divine power, and the corner of his mouth twitched. It was actually the evil power. Divine power turned into the evil power? You can't be the reincarnation of the blood demon race, right? Qin Feiyong sized up the madman with a strange look. Reincarnation. The madman was stunned and speechless. Your imagination is too rich. Qin Feiyong said, "Take off your shoes and let me see your soles." Why? The madman was suspicious. Qin Feiyong said, "What else can I do? I just want to see if there's an imprint." Imprint? The madman and the white-eyed wolf were suspicious. What the hell? But when the Ghost King and Shweta heard this, a trace of surprise appeared on their faces, and they asked, "How do you know about the imprint?" "The city lord of the mysterious heaven, ancient city, told me," Qin Feiyong said. "I see." The two nodded in realization. He even told this human about such an important matter. It seemed that the city lord of the mysterious heaven, ancient city, trusted this human a lot. The madman took off his shoes, but there was no imprint of the blood demon race on his soles. "It's really strange," Qin Feiyong mumbled. "Don't say anything strange. Hurry up and give us the soul stone," the white-eyed wolf urged. After the madman put on his shoes, he looked at Qin Feiyong and said, just in time, "Give me the yin-yang chaos pill, and I'll break through to the half-step nine heavens realm." "Okay." Qin Feiyong nodded and temporarily suppressed the doubts in his heart. The Ghost King said, "Then you guys go up." "Thank you." The madman smiled. The Ghost King smiled and sent the two of them and the wolf to the upper level. "This is great. With the soul stone, they don't have to fight with us for the evil power anymore." Shweta heaved a sigh of relief. The Ghost King was speechless. "Why do I feel that they are like the gods of plague in your eyes?" "They are the gods of plague to begin with." Shweta pouted. The Ghost King smiled and asked, after interacting with each other along the way, "What do you think of Qin Feiyong?" "To be honest, I even specially tested him. There's nothing to say about his character. He's definitely trustworthy." Shweta said, "That's good." The Ghost King nodded. "And on the way there, Shweta also told me a lot of things. This Qin Feiyong seems to be in control of an independent small world. And the living beings in this world are the same as us. Not only are their cultivation levels restricted, but they also have a kind of imprint on their bodies." Shweta said, "What?" The Ghost King suddenly stood up, his face full of shock. "This Qin Feiyong is indeed a powerful human. And on the way, we were even ambushed by the fire dragon, the ancestral dragon, and the dragon sovereign's daughter. Their goal was to get rid of him. So it's not hard to imagine how great of a threat Qin Feiyong is to the dragons outside." Shweta said, "It seems that this human might be the hope of our blood demon tribe." The Ghost King muttered. Chapter 26-25. "Hope," Shweta muttered. There seemed to be a trace of sadness between his brows. Was there really hope? Kinyu glanced at Shweta and waved his hand. An image appeared in the air. The image showed the upper level. Frenzy had already consumed the yin-yang chaos pill and was sitting cross-legged on the ground, concentrating on breaking through to the next realm. Qin Feiyong stood in the middle of the stone room, looking around with disbelief in his eyes. The time array in the mysterious ancient city had already surprised him, but he didn't expect the time array in the ancient city was even more heaven-defying. 500 years in a day. This was unprecedented. The white-eyed wolf said, "Little Qin Zi, tell me the details of your situation over the years." "Details?" Qin Feiyong was slightly taken aback and said with a smile, "Not long after I came to the Nether King's Hell, I met Wu Baichuan. Then I told you what happened in the mysterious ancient city." In that case, you didn't experience much after entering the Nether King's hell? The white-eyed wolf said with disinterest. Qin Feiyong nodded. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and said, "There's one more thing." "What is it?" The white-eyed wolf was interested again. "Shweta and I were ambushed by the fire dragon, ancestral dragon, princess dragons, and Duyuntian on the way to the ancient city," Qin Feiyong said. "What?" The white-eyed wolf was shocked. However, with Shweta around, not only did they fail, but they also paid a heavy price. The fire dragon, ancestral dragon, was killed by the rule force. In other words, we have one less powerful enemy in the Nether King's hell. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. The white-eyed wolf said with a sneaky smile, "Not one, but two." "Two?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. Yes, the earth dragon, ancestral dragon, was also killed by the rule force. The white-eyed wolf said. And Qin Feiyong was bewildered. The white-eyed wolf said, "Something big also happened in the ancient city of Qingyu." "What is it?" Qin Feiyong was curious. White-eyed wolf told Qin Feiyong in detail about how Yi Zhong and the others had snatched the heaven-defying divine artifact. Qin Feiyong was stunned when he heard this. It took him a while to come back to his senses. He shook his head and said with a smile, "The dragons have really suffered a double loss." "That's right. However, this is all thanks to Little Madman." The white-eyed wolf said. "What about that heaven-defying divine artifact?" Qin Feiyong asked. "It's on Qingyu." The white-eyed wolf pouted. Ever since it entered this place, the Ghost King had been guarding against it as if it were a thief. It could not find any opportunity to attack it at all. The blood demon race has already treated us very well. We need to know how to be grateful. Don't think of such crooked ideas. Qin Feiyong glared at it. "Brother, aren't you making plans for the future?" We will have a war with the dragons sooner or later. One more heaven-defying divine artifact means one more chance of winning. Don't forget, the dragons are not just the dragon sovereign and the various ancestral dragons. There is also a dragon god that has never appeared before. The white-eyed wolf said. "Dragon god," Qin Feiyong muttered. "If we have an all-out war with the dragons, this dragon god will definitely not sit back and watch. At that time, if we don't have the strength to surpass the dragons, you know better than anyone else what will happen to us. In short, we can't afford to lose and we can't lose." The white-eyed wolf said in a low voice. Qin Feiyong sighed and said, "Let's talk about it when the time comes. Let's cultivate to the peak of the 9th heaven realm first." After cultivating to the peak of the 9th heaven realm, when they left hell, they could directly break through to the undead realm. Only by breaking through to the undead realm would they have the ability to compete with the dragons. Bang! During the conversation, Frenzy had also successfully broken through, and like Qin Feiyong, he had successfully broken through 2 small realms, following which, with the help of the white-eyed wolf, he opened the door of potential. "You should have come to the ancient Qingyu city earlier. Otherwise, I wouldn't have wasted so much time." Frenzy was unhappy. "I didn't know you guys were in the ancient Qingyu city." Qin Feiyong was helpless. If he knew earlier, he wouldn't have stayed in the mysterious sky ancient city to cultivate. Fate is playing tricks on us. Frenzy shook his head and sighed. Suddenly, Frenzy frowned and asked, "Is the situation of the blood demon race similar to the black tortoise world in the past?" "Yes." Qin Feiyong nodded. "Then, do you have any way to help them? Although the blood demon race rules the underworld king's hell, I can see that they also yearn for the outside world." Frenzy said, "It's difficult." Qin Feiyong sighed. Frenzy said, "I'm not afraid of it, but I'm afraid I don't have confidence. To be honest, I really don't have confidence. After all, we don't even know the strength of the dragon god now." Qin Feiyong shook his head. As soon as he heard the name Dragon God, Frenzy fell silent. Although he had never seen it before, the name Dragon God was enough to suffocate him. If I can help, I will definitely help. But if I can't, there's nothing I can do. Let's talk about this later. Let's cultivate first. After saying that, Qin Feiyang also sat cross-legged on the ground and took out a soul stone to cultivate. In the main hall, King Yu waved his hand and the scene in the air dissipated. Then he lowered his head and remained silent. The entire main hall gradually fell into dead silence. Shweta gritted his teeth and looked at King Yu. King Yu, I think we can take a gamble. King Yu was shocked. He raised his head and looked at Shweta, his eyes flickering. I really don't want to be a captive animal anymore. I want to defy the heavens and change my fate. Even if I fail and die miserably, I won't regret it. Shweta clenched his fists, his blood-red eyes shining with determination. Defy the heavens and change fate. King Yu murmured and waved his hand. You can leave first. Let this king think about it. He was the king of the blood demon race. Every decision he made would directly affect the entire blood demon race. Therefore, he couldn't be as straightforward as Shweta. He had too many concerns. Yes, Shweta responded respectfully. He turned around and strode out of the palace. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the world barrier and peek at a majestic figure in the sky. There was a trace of unyielding in his expression. On the second level, more than 200 years had passed. Qin Feiyang and Frenzy had already reached the half-step ninth heaven realm. Although more than 200 years had passed on the second level, only half a day had passed outside. Swoosh! Qin Feiyang, who was cultivating, suddenly opened his eyes. There were wisps of light surging in his eyes. After a while, Qin Feiyang turned to look at Frenzy and White-Eyed Wolf and asked, Where is the gathering place that you mentioned? Frenzy and White-Eyed Wolf opened their eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Tell me quickly, Qin Feiyang urged. Frenzy said, Giant Dragon Mountain Range. Is it far? Qin Feiyang asked. Not far. It only takes a few hours to reach the peak of the ninth heaven realm to reach the Giant Dragon Mountain Range. Frenzy said. Qin Feiyang pondered again. What's going on? White-Eyed Wolf asked. If I remember correctly, Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon told Princess Dragons and Du Yuntian to go to the gathering place to find Yizhong and the others. Qin Feiyang said. That's normal. Hell is so dangerous. Before Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon died, he definitely told them to meet up with Yizhong and the others. White-Eyed Wolf said, You didn't think of the main point. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Main point? White-Eyed Wolf frowned. Frenzy couldn't help but ponder when he heard this. Qin Feiyang looked at White-Eyed Wolf and asked, Are Princess Dragons and Du Yuntian our targets? That's right. White-Eyed Wolf nodded. Now, since we know that they are going to the Giant Dragon Mountain Range, isn't this an opportunity for us? Qin Feiyang asked again. Opportunity? White-Eyed Wolf was stunned. That's right. This is an opportunity. Frenzy nodded and smiled. He finally understood Qin Feiyang's meaning. You mean we should rush to the Giant Dragon Mountain Range to kill Du Yuntian and Princess Dragons? White-Eyed Wolf asked. You're not that stupid. Qin Feiyang smiled. TCH, I just don't like to use my brain. White-Eyed Wolf snorted. Qin Feiyang smiled and said there's no time to lose. I'll go to the Giant Dragon Mountain Range now. You're going. What about us? White-Eyed Wolf asked. Qin Feiyang said, You guys can stay here and continue to cultivate. Why? White-Eyed Wolf frowned. To deal with Princess Dragons and Du Yuntian, there's no need for all of us to go. Moreover, I have some concerns. Qin Feiyang's face showed a trace of worry. What concerns? A man and a wolf looked at him suspiciously. Although Yi Zhong and the others have already left the giant dragon mountain range because princess dragons haven't met up with them, it's hard to guarantee that they won't secretly return. If they really return to the giant dragon mountain range and hide somewhere, won't you guys expose your identities if you follow them? Qin Feiyong said. White-eyed Wolf scratched his head and said in confusion, I don't understand. Idiot. Think about it from my perspective. If it's us and we agreed to meet at a place in advance, but we didn't come, would you leave? Frenzy said. Of course not. White-eyed Wolf was slow for a moment and laughed. So, even if the blood demon race knows that the giant dragon mountain range is the gathering place of dragons, Yi Zhong and the others may still secretly return to the giant dragon mountain range and wait for princess dragons and the fire dragon to meet up with them. Frenzy said, I see. White-eyed Wolf nodded and finally understood. Although it's just a guess, it might really happen, so don't go. Besides, it's useless for you guys to go. Qin Feiyong laughed. Get lost, as if you're very useful. The man and Wolf rolled their eyes. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but laugh and shouted, Senior King Yu, I have something to discuss with you. Swoosh! Before he finished speaking, King Yu appeared in the stone room and looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. What's the matter? Qin Feiyong briefly explained the situation. Okay, we'll go now. Hearing this, King Yu's eyes flashed coldly, and he immediately left the palace with Qin Feiyong. Standing in the air above the square in front of the door, he shouted, 10 great commanders, come quickly! Whoosh! After a while, Shweta and the other great commanders flew through the air and landed in front of King Yu and Qin Feiyong. Shweta asked, King Yu, why are you in such a hurry? Let's talk while we walk. King Yu waved his hand and swept up the 10 great commanders and Qin Feiyong before rushing out of the city like lightning. Qin Feiyong also did not expect that the Serene King would actually personally go there. Even more so, he did not expect that the Serene King would gather the 10 great commanders. In that case, even if Yi Zhong and the others were to hide in the giant Dragon Mountain range, there would not be much of an issue. Chapter 26. So, it's to kill the princess of the dragons. On the way, after hearing King Yu's explanation, Blood 2 and the others nodded in realization. Shweta looked a little angry. What's wrong with you? King Yu looked at him suspiciously. I'm angry with myself. Shweta said, Angry with yourself? King Yu was stunned. Qin Feiyong, Blood 2, and the others also looked at Shweta in shock. I was there when they killed Ancestral Gragon of the Fire Dragon. I also heard Ancestral Gragon of the Fire Dragon telling them to go to the gathering place. But I didn't think of going to the gathering place to kill them. Why is my brain so slow? Shweta patted his head and said in frustration. Hearing this, King Yu, Blood 2, and the others couldn't help but shake their heads and laugh. So he was angry about this. Boss, you don't have to be angry. After all, not everyone is so meticulous. Blood 2 chuckled. Get lost. Shweta glared at him and turned to Qin Feiyong. There was a hint of dissatisfaction in his eyes. Next time, I'll definitely think of it before you. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but laugh. He didn't expect such a big guy to care so much about such a small matter. However, it also showed that Shweta's personality was very straightforward. He said whatever he wanted to say and didn't hide it in his heart. Such a person was easy to get along with because he wasn't scheming. Wait. Shweta reached out and stopped everyone. He frowned and said, It's too late for us to go to the Dragon Mountains now. Why? Everyone looked at him in confusion. That person called Du Yuntian has the same cultivation level as me. He's also at the perfected 9 Heavens realm. Then our speed is the same. Since I've already brought Brother Qin back to the ancient city, Du Yuntian must have already brought the princess of the dragons to the Dragon Mountains. When they reach the Dragon Mountains and find that Yi Zhong and the others aren't there, they will definitely be suspicious and hide or leave. Then if we go there now, won't it be a wasted trip? Shweta said. Ahem. Qin Feiyong coughed and said with a smile, You're wrong. You're wrong. Shweta was stunned. Yes, although Du Yuntian's cultivation is the same as yours, he has none of the advantages you have. Qin Feiyong said. What advantage? Shweta was suspicious. First, the power of evil. As he travels, he has to divide his attention to refine the evil power. His speed will definitely be slower than yours. Next would be the ferocious beasts of hell. As the great commander of the blood demon race, that ferocious beast definitely won't dare to block your path. But princess dragons and Du Yuntian are different. One of them is a human and the other is a dragon. Furthermore, your blood demon race has already given the order to hunt down the humans and dragons. Think about it. What will happen if the beasts see them? He must have pounced on them in a frenzy. In the face of endless ferocious beasts, their speed will naturally slow down. I reckon that they might still be halfway there. Qin Feiyong smiled. Yeah, Shweta scratched his head, feeling as if his intelligence had been crushed once again. Boss, isn't there a saying that goes differently? All brawn and no brains. You're a big guy. Aren't you looking for trouble by competing with Brother Qin in terms of brains? Shweta grinned. No one will think you're mute if you don't speak. Shweta's veins suddenly bulged. Shweta chuckled. All right. Let's continue on our way. Qingyu shook his head and smiled, leading a group of people and disappearing into the sky like lightning. A few hours later, a group of people descended outside the Dragon Mountain range. Qingyu scanned the mountains and rivers and said in a deep voice, The Dragon Mountain range is ahead. Qin Feiyong raised his head and scanned the Dragon Mountain range, then looked at the 10 great commanders and said, I'll have to trouble you guys. Shweta said, What trouble? Just say it. You guys split up and enter the Dragon Mountain range from all directions. Along the way, use your divine sense to conduct a carpet search of the Dragon Mountain range. If Yi Zhong and the others really return to the Dragon Mountain range, there will be nowhere to run. Qin Feiyong said. Good idea. Shweta's eyes lit up. The other great commanders also looked at Qin Feiyong with admiration. No matter what, this person did it flawlessly. The dragons were really unlucky to have provoked such a shrewd enemy. Then let's move. If you discover anything, release your aura immediately. The others will also rush over immediately to assist in the encirclement. Qingyu said. Yes. The 10 commanders responded respectfully. Then they dispersed in all directions and quickly disappeared into the mountains. Qingyu looked at Qin Feiyong and asked, What about us? Qin Feiyong smiled and said, Of course we're going straight to the valley. Qingyu nodded and smiled. He swept up Qin Feiyong and rushed toward the slanting valley. Senior Qingyu, since you and the 10 great commanders have left, will there be any problems in the ancient city? Qin Feiyong asked. Don't worry about that. Even if I and the 10 great commanders are not around, the dragons will not dare to barge into the ancient city. After all, there are still many 9 Heavens realm experts in the ancient city. We'll talk about it later. I'm the owner of the ancient city. If there are any changes, I'll be able to sense it immediately. Qingyu smiled confidently. That's good. Qin Feiyong nodded. Very soon, the 2 of them landed in the sky above the valley. It had been 1.5 years since the last battle. The traces left behind by the battle had long been covered by grass and trees. Moreover, there were more beasts in the valley. However, when these beasts saw Qingyu, they immediately lay on the ground and shivered. In the past year, have you seen any humans appearing in the giant Dragon Mountain range? Qingyu asked. No. Those beasts shook their heads. King Yu frowned and said, "Leave the giant dragon mountain range immediately." The group of beasts turned around and ran away as if they had been granted amnesty. King Yu said, "It seems that princess dragons and the rest have not arrived. If they haven't arrived, then they are unlucky." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. As they could not use the image crystal, it was impossible for princess dragons and Du Yuntian to know about the situation of Yi Zhong and the rest. Therefore, when they arrived at the giant dragon mountain range, they would not be wary at all. And this was enough to be fatal. At the same time, the 10 commanders also entered the giant dragon mountain range, respectively. Their divine senses covered the sky and earth, not missing any place. Time passed by bit. Bang! Suddenly, a terrifying aura burst out from his body. Qin Feiyang and King Yu immediately turned around and saw that the aura came from the northeast direction. And the owner of this aura was Shui Er. Could there be a situation? Qin Feiyang was bewildered. "Let's go and take a look." King Yu shouted and immediately led Qin Feiyang to the northwest direction. At the same time, Shueda and the rest also heard the commotion and rushed toward Shui Er. Bang! In less than 3 breaths, another terrifying aura burst out. Qin Feiyang, King Yu, and the 10 commanders were all very familiar with this aura. Yi Zhong. He is indeed hiding in the giant dragon mountain range secretly. King Yu sneered. To Qin Feiyang, the giant dragon mountain range was very big, but to a peak 9 heavens realm like King Yu, it was just a small place. In less than 10 breaths, they all arrived at the battlefield and immediately saw Yi Zhong and Shui Er fighting fiercely in the void ahead. And without any suspense, Yi Zhong had the absolute advantage, because he had mastered the power of law. Although Shui Er was also very strong, he did not have the power of law and could not transform. With his strength alone, naturally he was no match for Yi Zhong. His entire body was dripping with blood. However, Shui Er could borrow the power of the evil sun, so it would be difficult for Yi Zhong to kill him. Yi Zhong. What a coincidence. We meet again, King Yu said coldly. Shui Er also retreated to the side and summoned the power of the evil sun to heal himself. Together with Shueda and the others, they surrounded Yi Zhong. Yi Zhong frowned. What was going on? The 10 commanders and King Yu had all come to the giant dragon mountain range, and by the looks of it, they were obviously searching the giant dragon mountain range. Could it be that the blood demon race knew that he was hiding in the giant dragon mountain range? But that was not right. With his understanding of the blood demon race, these big guys would not have thought of this at all. Suddenly, Yi Zhong looked at Qin Feiyang, who was beside King Yu, and his expression froze. Qin Feiyang, how could it be him? Long time no see, Chief Palace Master Yi. We are quite lucky to have caught a big fish like you. Qin Feiyang stepped forward and said with a smile. Yi Zhong said in shock and anger, "Why are you with the blood demon race?" "It's a long story. Why don't we go to the ancient city together and have a good chat?" Qin Feiyang smiled. Yi Zhong looked at Qin Feiyang and then at King Yu and the 10 commanders. He was in disbelief. He had become friends with the blood demon race. How did this kid do it? Qin Feiyang looked around and asked with a smile, "Why are you alone? Where are the Chief Palace Master, the Beast King, and the Ancestor Dragons?" "Humph." Yi Zhong snorted. "Let me think. The Ancestor Dragons have not comprehended the power of laws, so they would not dare to take the risk to return to the giant dragon mountain range. And the Chief Palace Master is a businessman. He would not do a losing deal. As for the Beast King, now that he is only left with a wisp of his soul, he would not dare to take the risk. In the end, only you, Chief Palace Master Yi, are left. So I concluded that you should be the only one in the giant dragon mountain range now." Qin Feiyang smiled. Yi Zhong said in a deep voice, "You brought them here?" "That's right. Half a year ago, I met the princess and the fire dragon, the ancestor dragon. They have not met up with you? So I concluded that you would definitely return to the giant dragon mountain range, quietly to wait for them. In the end, it was as I expected. Qin Feiyong laughed. You met Her Highness? Yi Zhong was surprised. Yes, but she was unlucky to meet me. I accidentally killed her. And the fire dragon, the ancestor dragon, was also very unlucky. He was killed by the power of laws. Qin Feiyong said, Her Highness and Old Fire are dead? Yi Zhong's face changed. This was definitely bad news for the dragons. I don't want to take action against you. Follow me to the ancient city of Qingyu. I will also ask Senior Qingyu to let you go. Qin Feiyong said. You asked him to let me go, and he will let me go? Yi Zhong sneered. As long as Brother Qin says the word, I will let you go now. Qingyu said. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.